Hello, hello, and we are live. Just double check, make sure that the headphones are plugged in. Testing. Audio looks like it's all good. Howdy, howdy, everybody. We will bring up guests in just a moment. Just got to finish setting things up really quick. Okay, we should be all set to go. We are a bit early, but, you know, not the end of the world. I don't think anybody's ever complained about me being early. YouTube comments working better today. I have no idea. I wasn't live yesterday. All right, let us bring up maybe our first guest, but it seems awfully quick to be our first guest. Let's talk to Love. Love, how's it going?
Hello, Dr. Blitz. How are you?
I'm doing okay. Love, how old do you think the Earth is?
Definitely older than 6,000 years old.
Okay, well, I am looking for disagreement here, so thank you for being here, but I am going to let you go. I am looking for people who think that the Earth is quite young, because such people exist. Did you get the soundboard? Oh, we got the soundboard. It's actually built into TikTok, which is really nice.
Do not come.
You're fine. We're gonna have a good time with this today. As long as I remember to use it, it should be a good time. All right, anyway, we are currently waiting for our next guest. So give it a few minutes, people will trickle in, and we'll be able to get some guests going in just a minute. Catholics don't have to believe that? Sure, I don't think any Christians have to believe it, but many Christians do. Hence, the background. Guess who just got Overleaf Pro for my uni? Congrats! That's a big step forward. Help me study for the MCAT. That I probably can't help you with. But, you know, we do our best. Almost forgot to like the live. Good, you should like the live. Your science lied to you about church? I don't think that, like, you'll find discussions of church in science textbooks. Why Earth isn't 6,000 years old? We have, like, so much evidence that points to the contrary. Can you give me, like, one basic concept to explain to flat earthers that they're wrong? Yeah, if the sun doesn't actually go behind the curve, if it just gets far away, then the sun should get smaller and smaller until it disappears. It shouldn't get lower and lower, it's staying at roughly the same size. That's the trouble. Is the Big Bang, like, actually true? Well, yeah. In a certain sense. If you think that the Big Bang is like the beginning of the universe, then we don't know if that's true. Are you comfortable debating against Islam? Yeah, generally. Comfortable debating against whomever? Do you believe you have a soul? I don't. I don't think that anyone has a soul. Religion is heavily mentioned in science textbooks in reference to AD historically, and some differ on the time period. In reference to AD, so AD is not religion, that's timekeeping. It may have a religious origin, but, like, that's timekeeping. I can arrange if you want. Debate Robert Sigenis. I have no idea who that is. Many Christians I know don't believe the Earth is 6,000 years old. Good. I'm glad. We know more about space than our own oceans. I don't know how true that is. It's definitely something that we say a lot, but I don't actually know how true it is. Fun fact, at least in Poland, we don't learn about whom until a fairly advanced level, like when we're starting to learn about formal stuff. Yeah, but that's like, it is a fairly advanced English topic as well. So, all right, we have our first guest. Although I think I've spoken with Catholic traditionalists before. Catholic traditionalists, have we spoken before?
I think so.
And how old do you think the Earth is?
Pretty old. It's pretty old.
Older than say 10,000 years?
However old it is, I know God created it.
Okay, well, but look, the topic today is not about whether or not God created the Earth. The topic today is about how old the Earth is.
Well, it's pretty darn old. Now, I believe personally that it's not millions or billions of years old.
Oh,
And if you go to
that's what I was asking about.
VaticanCatholic.com or Creation Museum website,
Uh-huh.
they actually show the evidence of a young Earth.
Do you think that the Earth is young?
Yes, I believe that the Earth is young.
But didn't you just say a minute ago that you think it's very, very old?
Yes, so I would say thousands of years is old. Like if I were,
okay.
let's say, 7,000 years old, I would be a pretty old man. Wouldn't you agree?
Well, sure, but you might not be a very old tree, or you might not be a very old rock.
So, so you're not wanting anybody to come up to actually prove the existence of God? You're not
Well, look, I mean,
taking
like
anybody for that?
Like you can absolutely believe in God and also think that the Earth is 4.5 billion years old. Both things can be true about somebody's beliefs. So
Okay, but are you taking anybody up right now to make the case for the existence of God? That's what I came up for.
not today.
If you're not, then I'll just
Not today.
I'll just come
Maybe
back
tomorrow.
another time.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks
Because
for being
usually
here.
what I do is I get the atheists to actually admit that God exists just by asking them a few questions, and by their
I'm sure.
answers, they're actually proving that God exists.
I'm sure.
You
sure,
did
but
that the last time, by the way, when we spoke.
I'm sure. Feel free to come back tomorrow.
And then you got all triggered when I pointed that out to you, and you dropped.
I'm sure. Feel free to come back tomorrow. We can talk about God then.
All right. Okay.
Reading is hard. Take care. Yeah, it turns out that like reading is hard, I guess. That is the subject. That is not the subject today. Anyway, we have a regular guest. Let's see if he comes in shouting this time. 85. 85,
Dr.
welcome back.
Blitz. Dr. Blitz.
Welcome
Meet
back.
again.
85, how old do you think the Earth is?
It's millions of years old.
Millions of years old? Not billions of years old, though.
Oh, maybe. There's no actual way for us to tell, but I think that.
Well, but look, that's not the topic of the
6,000 to 10,000.
That's not the topic of today's
racial reason.
debate.
But we
So
can get into that.
Look, so if
But
you
church
think
did
that
not lie to you about science
look,
at all.
so 85, if you think that the Earth is more than say 1 million years old, then we are not talking about the subject today, right?
Well,
the subject
church,
is
the prompt is your church lied, and I'm telling you that.
No, the topic is Earth isn't 6,000 years old.
Well, we don't know how old it is, but I'm telling you, what you're talking about, that 6,000-year-old thing, that's rooted in racism. That's because a certain group.
Well, I don't know if it's rooted in racism, but it's certainly rooted in anti-science.
It definitely is, and I have proof of it.
That might be the case.
It's only a certain group of people that believe life started 6,000 to 10,000 years ago because they want to write themselves into history. But
that may be true that's like the origin. But 85,
most historians,
for what it's worth, I have spoken with people of color.
Physicists will tell you
85. I've
Earth
spoken
is
with people
millions of years old.
85. I agree, but I've spoken with people of color who also think that the Earth is 6,000 years old. So
yeah, because they're brainwashed by the same racial ideology. But I'm telling you, you can.
I'm glad we're in agreement. All right, let's talk to Call Me Boop.
Hello.
Call Me Boop. How's it going?
Yeah, I think the Earth is 6,000 years old.
You have some horrible background noise. Are you like standing in the middle of the highway?
I'm like, basically. Wait, I'll move.
Can you fix that?
Wait. You hear me better?
You still have horrible background noise.
Oh, frick. I don't know. Now?
Okay. Are you right next to the street?
Not anymore.
Okay, well, it's still super loud.
Oh.
Actually, it seems okay now, so maybe we're okay.
Nice. I wanted to tell you, the Earth is 6,000 years old because my magic book says so. So yeah.
Okay, it doesn't sound like you're being genuine, so thanks for being here. Call me Boop. Let's talk to Xavier. Xavier, how's it going?
How's it going, bro?
I'm doing all right. Xavier, how old do you think the Earth is?
I actually just wanted to come up here to say I agree with what you're doing, and I think it's good that you're educating the uneducated, even if they're ignorant.
I appreciate that. Thanks for being here, Xavier. Talk to Stuart. Remember, it says join if you disagree, not join if you agree. Stuart, how's it going? Stuart? Stuart left. I think you convinced everyone it isn't 6,000 years old. You know what? You're right. We did. Oh no, we have one more potential guest. If Proxy, how's it going?
What's up? Doing good. While I don't necessarily disagree with the prompt, I could argue that science lied to us about our church.
Okay, but that's not the prompt. Should we talk to Storm again? I think, isn't Storm the neo-Nazi? Is he the... No, he's not the neo-Nazi.
What's up, man?
Storm.
How you doing?
Hey, Storm. How old do you think the Earth is?
You know, I don't know. I mean, they tell us. I know they have a roundabout and carbon dating and all that, but I've come across stuff that says they're not telling us the mistakes they find with all that. There's mistakes with that. They can, like, for instance.
How do you know?
I mean, because I saw a documentary many years ago before YouTube was police, and they were talking about, like, for instance, this guy, they did a carbon dating on a modern mug. And the modern mug said it was like, I mean, the carbon dating test said the mug was 4,000 years old or something like that. I don't, you know what? I tell you what, I can't dispute it because I don't have the tools to argue it. So that's what's against me. But what I can argue is that I know we have a soul. I know we have a soul.
Okay, but that's not the topic.
Oh, I'm sorry. Your child lied to you about, your church lied to you about science. Yeah.
Earth isn't 6,000 years old.
Yeah, they've lied to us, no doubt. They've lied to us. But science isn't totally telling us the truth either, man. I mean,
you can say that, but that's just not the topic, right?
But I don't get, what's the topic then?
The topic is the age of the Earth.
Oh, my bad. I didn't see that part. You know what? I'll get off. I don't know. I'm sorry. Thank you, though, man. Appreciate you.
All right. Take care, Storm. We just got a $100 or 100 Canadian dollar super chat, which is still plenty, from Skeeters. Thank you so much, Skeeters. Let's get, I don't know, there's 500 plus people on TikTok. There's a few hundred people on YouTube. Let's get like 100 W's going for Skeet. Thank you so much. That's super generous. Göbekli Tepe is 13,000 years old. The Sumerian tablets that include Neptune in the solar system presses 6,000. Comes from the same people that told us the Earth was flat. The Book of Enoch says Earth has a 364.25 orbit, but was not included in the Bible. Okay, I don't know what you were telling me, but I appreciate it regardless. Yes, Göbekli Tepe is quite old. I don't think that there are Sumerian tablets that include Neptune, but we'll take it. We'll take it, y'all. All right, let's talk to Rodney. Rodney, how's it going?
How you doing?
Rodney, how old do you think the Earth is?
I believe it's what God tells it is, 6,000 years old, approximately.
Okay, and why do you think so? What leads you to believe that that's the case?
Because I believe in God.
Well, there are a lot of people who believe in God who don't think the Earth is 6,000 years old.
Well, then they don't believe in God.
Sure they do.
They believe in science.
They don't have to be in conflict.
Well, how can you say that if you believe something other than what he tells us?
Where in the Bible does he say that the Earth is 6,000 years old?
Well, it doesn't exactly say, but you got to figure it out depending on,
Based
on
off
all
of
the history.
interpretations, right?
I guess, yeah.
So look, all I'm saying is that presumably you think that the way that we conduct ourselves in the American judicial system is at least not the worst way to conduct ourselves. You know, you have lawyers and they present evidence, and then the evidence goes in front of a jury, and then the jury evaluates the quality of that evidence, and then we figure out what's true, right?
Well, that's just people, so you can't go by what people are. If you believe in God, that you have to have trust in Him, and you have to. And I just feel like that's just how I feel. I feel like if you can't trust in what He says in the Bible and what He's taught us, then you can't guess for yourself. We're not
He didn't
gods.
say it,
We're only
right?
people. Well, He doesn't say it, but it's it's based on the time in history. He tells us the history and where it's happened and all that, and then we can go back to look at history and see that that's how far back it is.
So,
right?
I mean, look, there's some issues here, right? Like, why is it that we should think that
everything.
Sorry?
I say there's issues with everything.
Right, but
we're not taught everything.
No, and that's fine. My point is that the way that you come to the 6,000 year conclusion really depends on like the way that you interpret the Bible, not just directly from the Bible itself, right? It's based off of making various assumptions about the amount of time between begats. It's based off of various assumptions about the amount of time a day is in Genesis 1. It's based off of various assumptions about how long a year is supposed to represent. So it just seems like that if you want to believe that the Earth is 6,000 years, you have to make a whole bunch of assumptions. And why would you make those assumptions when instead you could just look at what the evidence exactly implies and then build your beliefs around that?
Because science is not exact. Like that other gentleman said, they ain't
Science
gonna
is
tell
not
you
exact. Can you elaborate?
No. Yeah, just like that other gentleman was saying, where they would do carbon dating, and then he said that he heard about they were making mistakes or whatever, and then they didn't pronounce that, so they keep that as secret or hidden.
Well, if it was kept a secret, then he wouldn't have known about it, right?
Well, I guess it's not. I guess a few people may know about it, but not too many does.
I mean, so if you want to challenge the science, you can, but it turns out that like the science is really, really good. Now, like you said, science isn't perfect. Nobody's making the claim that science is perfect. But what we can say is that science gets it right most of the time. And when you're not sure if you got it right, you can just do it over and over again until you are sure.
Well, I just feel we're not gods. We're people.
We don't have to be gods.
Well, I'm just saying, like, I trust in my God, and I just feel like it's definitely it goes by. I guess I'm not very smart to explain all that, so I'm just I don't know. But all I know is I don't believe it's bigger than. I also heard like a preacher tell me once, or I watched this program on a preacher, and he was talking about how God fools us about makes things look. Makes the science look like things are thousands of years old when it's really not, and it's only 6,000 years old. But God's made it that way so that we are confused about certain things, or that makes us have more faith. We have to believe in what He's telling us.
Why would God want to confuse us?
Well, it creates us to like confer with each other and see, talk about different faiths and different ideas, so that we can confer with each other and then come up with a good conclusion about God.
But surely you wouldn't say that God is a God of confusion.
No, I didn't say.
But you just said that He did something with the goal of confusing us.
No, you're not. I didn't explain it exactly right. What I'm saying is, like, say you find a fossil in the ground, right? You find some bones. So God made it so that it looks like, to us, it looks like it's thousands and thousands years old, maybe 10,000 years old. But in realistic terms, it's only 4,000 years old.
Why would He do that?
Because He doesn't want, I don't know, I don't know. I'm not a God. but I know that that's what this preacher explained to us. So
right, but that just seems like he's describing God as being, you know, deceptive.
Well,
you would never say that God is deceptive.
No.
So how can you explain him like planting fake evidence or planting stuff that makes us confused on purpose?
I don't know really like what to tell you exactly about that. All I'm telling you is I watched a preacher once that told people, told the audience about dinosaurs and stuff and different things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it does state in the Bible that there are dinosaurs. It does say that. So it says it in a certain place in the Bible. I don't know exactly where it is. I know that it's stated.
I don't think it says that.
It doesn't say dinosaurs. We use the word dinosaurs. We made that up.
Right, of course, dinosaur is an English word, but I don't think it says that in the Bible. I don't think it says anything similar in the Bible.
Yeah, it does. I'm not sure where it is. If I find it, I'll follow you, and if I find it, I'll get you back on it. Okay?
Yeah. Because like you just understand that it seems kind of like, I don't know, hard for me to believe that it talks about dinosaurs in the Bible when you don't remember what the verse is. So.
Well, the Bible's pretty big, bro. It's not so I can
sure, but like this seems pretty important if it's true. Look, so you don't have to do fancy science to know the Earth is older than 6,000 years old, right? Like, you know about tree rings, surely.
Okay, so
like
that.
You know, every year you get another ring on your tree.
Yep.
So we can use tree rings to establish that the Earth is at least 7,506 years old.
And how is that? Which trees are you talking about?
So what you can do is you can take living trees, in this case oak. You can take living trees, and then you can look at the oldest living trees that you can find. And you can examine the shape of the tree rings and the width of the tree rings. And you can go compare those with old oaks that have died a long time ago. Or maybe they didn't die a long time ago. They died perhaps fairly recently, but they lived a long, long time before that. And so you can kind of line up the tree rings to figure out when the dead oak was alive and when it started growing rings. And then you can do the same thing with it and an even older tree. And you can kind of walk these back together, going back 7,506 years using just oak trees in a part of Germany. Sorry, in a part of the Czech Republic, rather.
Well, I don't know. Maybe that is.
But it's it's just tree rings, right? Like that, there's nothing fancy going on there.
Well, you're still coming to conclusion based on, when was that tree taken down? So you don't know when the old tree was taken down. So your miscalculation possibly could
the whole point is that you can cross match the rings in the old tree to the early rings of a living tree. And you can match those rings, so you can see when the old tree went down. Sorry, you can see when the old tree went down, and then you can also see when the old tree was born.
Okay, well, I don't know that evidence. I never heard of that or seen it, so I don't know. I can't talk.
But it's not so far fetched, right?
I guess. But it's not. I don't feel it's my right to second guess God. So I'm gonna have faith no matter what. So there's gonna be a lot of things that maybe doesn't make sense, but if you don't have faith, what do you got?
You could have evidence.
Yeah, but like I said to you, you could be confused in some way with that evidence. I see that you're saying...
Could you be confused about God?
Not faith. Faith is different than things we physically can see.
Do you think that generally having faith in something is a good way to know that it's true?
I don't know, but all I know is I can tell you. All I can tell you is I'm a walking miracle. I was healed by God, so
crazy.
I have more faith than most people. That's all I can say to you.
Walking miracle.
Yes, sir. I was on death's doorstep. and he brought me back to life.
That's crazy. How do you
No
know it was
doctor
him?
could do it.
How do you know it was
Because
him and not like, you know, you went to spontaneous remission or the doctors fixed you or whatever it might have been?
Because I went to many doctors for almost 3 years, and nobody could give me a cure.
And then what?
And then I did some praying. They did anointments, and I did a bunch of prayers. And within 10 days, I was completely healed, and I have never had a problem since.
Okay. How do you know that that was God and not an alien?
A what?
An alien?
There's no such thing as aliens, guy.
Oh. That seems like you're awfully certain of that.
Positive.
Really?
Yep.
Why?
The aliens we see are called, they're demons. Demons and are, you know, angels from the past. Bad angels that came down that were fallen angels.
So look,
Those
what
were
if
all
I
the
what if
demons we
I
see.
say, by the way, there's something beeping in the background.
Yeah, I'm in the hospital with my wife, sorry.
Is your wife okay?
No, she's got sepsis. She's really sick.
Fuck, man. What are you doing talking to me? Go pay attention to your wife. Give her all of your love.
She's sleeping.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna let you go. I hope that your wife gets better.
All right.
Wish you the
Thank
best luck, man. Take care.
Have a blessed day. Bye.
Jesus, bro's debating the existence of God and the age of the earth next to his sleeping sepsis wife. That's super rough. Yeah, no, I don't want to keep debating him. That's a rough day. Damn. From Skeet with the 2 Canuck bucks. This is insane. Galileo was a devout Christian. He absolutely was. He was also mistaken about a lot of things. From Skeet with the 2 Canuck bucks again. Science is math. Well, no. Science is math plus empiricism. Perhaps you can put it that way. And from Skeet again, there's no reference to dinosaurs in the Bible. I think you're probably right. And Skeet again with the 2 Canuck bucks. Ask him if he does one good deed a day. Well, I only read these after I let somebody go. And from Skeet for the 7th time, what is 3i Atlas? It's a comment. But thank you so much for the donations, my guy. All right, let's talk to Miss Cake. Miss Cake, how's it going?
Blitz, it's good to talk to you.
We've spoken before, right?
Yes, we have. We are well known to one another.
That's right. That's right. You actually came on Unapologetic the other day, right?
I might have. I might have.
But Miss Cake, you don't think the Earth is 6,000 years old, do you?
No, I certainly don't. My disagreement is with your church lied to us about science.
So and this isn't addressing everybody.
Fair.
This is addressing specifically the people for whom their churches say that the Earth is 6,000 years old. That's who it's for.
That's fair. That's fair. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, like, there are a lot of churches who just don't mention any of this stuff, and they just kind of keep the world separate, which is super appreciated. Even better if they're not involved in politics. But Miss Cake, I'm gonna let you go because we have other people waiting.
No problem. Have a good one.
Take care, Miss Cake. Let's talk to Scuba. Scuba, how's it going?
Hey, what's up?
Not a whole lot. Scuba, how old do you think the Earth is?
Well, I wonder if there's a couple school of thoughts on it. Like when people say the Earth's 6,000 to 7,500 years old or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, are they adamant about the existence of Earth, or is it just about when civilization kind of started? And you get what I'm saying?
So generally, when people say that the Earth is XYZ number of years old, what that means is that's when the Earth was formed. But I mean, beyond that, like, civilization goes back further than 6,000 years as well.
Okay, because that's the part where okay. Yeah, that's what, and I guess that's where I was confused, because I was trying to look at that and I was trying to decipher this, and I'm like, not trying to take a church point of view because I'm not a Christian or anything, but also thinking, well, maybe have we ever explored the fact that maybe what these people are saying is that their writings and stuff go back
No, that's
And
not what
that's
they're
when they're
saying.
going to say that they're not actually saying that God created the earth.
No,
6,000 years
they
ago.
are saying that. Absolutely,
okay.
They're saying that. Yeah.
All right then. Well, I have no idea how old the earth is, but I was
Yep.
just wondering if that's ever been brought up. So I appreciate it.
Take care. All right, let's talk to Gilligan. Gilligan, how's it going?
Sorry, I just come out of a Teams meeting. Sorry.
Sorry, one more time?
Oh, I was in a Teams meeting. Sorry. I took a while connecting.
Okay.
How you doing?
I'm doing all right. Gilligan, how old do you think the Earth is?
I believe it is a lot less than we think, or that Earth isn't what we think either.
Okay, so you think that it's less than way less than 4.5 billion years old?
Definitely, yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Why so?
I'm skeptical of the Big Bang Theory.
Okay.
And science itself.
Mm-hmm.
I think fundamentally, this is really your question. It's to do with, well, you can link it back to flat Earth, globe Earth debate, because if you accept flat Earth, you're accepting that Big Bang's wrong. The house of cards falls down. You accept that the rest is wrong, or you have to.
I mean, yeah, but if you accept the Earth is flat, then you're pretty far gone already.
You mean gone down the in the sense of that you don't believe.
My view is that if you think that the Earth is 6,000 years, if you think that the Earth is far younger than 4.5 billion years old, you are less of a crazy person than somebody who thinks that the Earth is less than 4.5 billion years old and also thinks the Earth is flat.
Okay.
I think that we have to have a baseline that we agree that science works. Otherwise, there's not much to talk about.
Science is littered with assumptions.
Like what?
I mean, you could use gravity as one. There's
Sorry,
loads of assumptions.
So gravity isn't built into science. So what are the assumptions that go into science?
Well, science is really broad. You have to narrow it down.
Yeah. So let's talk about the foundation of science, the scientific method. Would you say that the scientific method is reliable?
You have to make inferences and assumptions to draw a conclusion, and data sets can be misinterpreted.
Not really answering my question. Do you think that the scientific method is generally reliable?
Generally reliable, you could say yes.
Okay. So what's stopping us from using, say, the scientific method to figure out that each ring on a tree corresponds to a year of growth?
But then you have to infer what those rings mean.
Yeah.
Only because somebody said, well, that's what it denotes.
Well, I mean, is anybody stopping you from using the scientific method for you to figure out what each ring on a tree means?
No, nobody's stopping me from doing that. But how would I correlate what how much? I could say that a ring on a tree denotes 1 minute, or I could say that it denotes 1,000,000 years. It's arbitrary.
Yeah, you could, and then you could go test it, right?
How am I going to test it?
You take tree cores. So you drill a little hole out of a tree as it's growing, and then you count how many rings there are, and then you wait a minute, say, and then you take another core, and you count how many rings there are. And if it hasn't grown another ring in the intervening minute, then that means that a tree ring doesn't correspond to 1 minute. That falsifies your hypothesis.
Agreed. So if you were to do that and you said, well, actually, when does the next ring form?
It forms over the course of a year.
So you're saying if a tree is, let's say...
For most trees, by the way. Not for all trees, but for most trees.
Okay. So if a tree is... Sorry, what did you say a ring correlates to?
A year of growth.
Okay. So I would expect there to be 60 rings in... Yeah, so... Yeah, 60 rings for 60 years?
Yeah.
Okay, but then
you could go chop down a tree that your grandparents planted, that they planted 60 years ago, and you can count the rings, and lo and behold, you'd find that it has 60 rings.
So does a tree have 60 rings, or is a tree ever been found where it's got X million rings? Has there ever been a tree found where there's X million rings?
Nobody's ever found a tree with millions of rings, because trees don't live forever. But that's not the question. The question is can we use the scientific method to at least put a lower bound on the age?
But you need to make one
and we
assumption.
can use trees to do that, right?
You need to make one assumption in that across, well, if you were to say, well, above 100 years, that it still correlates to, and it doesn't somehow slow down or speed up, or you have to assume that it's consistent.
Yeah. So this is called induction. This is called induction. Yeah, and one of the founding assumptions of science, of the scientific process, is that the world today, the rules that govern the world, are basically the same yesterday as they are today, as they will be tomorrow. So unless you have good reason, unless you have some motivating fact that suggests the situation would change, such that the trees would behave differently, then there's no reason to think that the trees would behave differently 100 years ago than they would today.
But then you need to assume what the life cycle of a tree is. So how
Not
long
really.
the tree lasts.
You can count the tree rings. And you can correlate those with when they were actually planted. Like, there are a lot of trees that like we can know when they were planted, right? Like, it's recorded. So
I'll work on what I know or I believe. So I know that what I believe is the oldest tree is a Hippocrates tree. Hippocrates?
Sorry, what tree?
Hippocrates. A tree once owned by Hippocrates. Is that the oldest tree?
Oh, no.
Is that just an old tree?
I don't know what tree you're referring to, but there is a tree that is confirmed to be like over 5,000 years old.
Okay. So how do we know that trees don't live to 10,000?
So the tree that is over 5,000 years old is just the oldest confirmed tree, right? There's nothing saying that species of tree couldn't live longer. We just haven't found one that's older.
But I could infer from that. Well, okay, if the oldest tree is 5,000 years old,
it's closer to 6,000 than it is to 5,000.
Well, that's interesting because you're saying Earth isn't 6,000 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So if we have no trees beyond 6,000, I could say
we do have trees. They're just already dead.
Okay.
And we can figure out when they died. And then we can figure out when they were planted by counting the tree rings.
Okay, so where's that tree, and how many rings has that tree got? How many rings has that tree got? Then?
So the current record, it depends on which trees you're using, but the current record for the bristlecone pine, this is the species of tree that is the oldest type of tree. That tree that's like nearing on 6,000 years old is a bristlecone pine. If you take current living bristlecone pines and then you compare them with dead bristlecone pines and you compare their rings, you can correlate them. And once you've correlated them, then you can figure out when the dead bristlecone pine died. You can figure out when it was planted as well. And that goes back something like 8,700 years.
But we're still not at millions of years.
No, but we're definitely more than 6,000. If you want to get to millions of years, we have to do some more sophisticated science.
So it still is inconclusive to prove that.
Well, you can't use trees to prove that the Earth is billions of years old. That's true. You have to use rocks. Because, rocks last longer.
I don't know that anyone's ever aged from a rock.
It sounds like you don't know a lot. Because this is like freely available information. In fact, this process of dating zircon crystals in particular goes back to the 50s.
Well, you can only ever know what you know, but you can't simply say that. It's like me saying to you, do you know the mechanics of how a council works in in the United Kingdom. You're not going to know it. So
right, but this is like something that you're really, really interested in, right? And you have strong opinions about. I don't have strong opinions about how a council works in the UK because I don't know anything about it. But it sounds like you have a strong opinion about how nobody's ever dated a rock, but you haven't read up on it. So why have that strong opinion?
But what assumptions are made within that conclusion?
So there's a, do you know about radioactivity?
Yeah.
Yeah, so first of all, there's the underlying assumption that the past is like the present is like the future. That the laws of physics, if you will, are basically the same yesterday as they will be today, as they are today, as they will be tomorrow. So that's an assumption, but it's probably a reasonable assumption. I imagine you would agree.
Reasonable, yeah.
Okay, so the laws of physics.
That's not true. That isn't true.
Oh, it's not true.
Oxygen levels were different.
That's not a law of physics.
I suppose it's not a law of physics. But you can't say that every law of physics that is available now was. It's still an assumption.
Yeah, and you said it's a reasonable one.
Yeah, it is a reasonable assumption. Fair enough. Yeah.
So once you have that assumption, then you can ask, okay, well, what do the laws of physics actually give us? They give us things like, you know, are you familiar with, I don't know, Bernoulli's law of hydrostatic equilibrium?
I've heard of it. I wouldn't say I'm.
Is it Bernoulli? There's a law regarding hydrostatic equilibrium, and I don't remember if it was Bernoulli or not. But you know, like we can expect that like the way that water behaves today, you know, when it's under a certain amount of pressure, when it's traveling at a certain speed, it'll behave the same way 100 years ago, right? It'd be the same. And so we can use similar kind of reasoning to come to conclusions about radioactive decay. So different rocks, I'm sure you've heard of uranium. I'm sure you've heard of things like thorium and plutonium. You know, these different rocks, they radioactively decay, and you probably don't want to stand near them when they're doing that because they can make you sick. And the rate at which they decay radioactively, these are laws of physics. These are called half-lives. They are determined by the laws of physics. Basically, they're just determined by kind of the shape of the atoms that make up the rocks. And so those things are things that we can measure very, very precisely, and we can measure them over time and see that they don't change. And using that fact, and basically that fact alone, we can determine, you know, it takes a certain amount of time for uranium to decay into lead. Using that fact and basically that fact alone, you can conclude how old a rock is if that rock started with uranium in it and it ended up with some amount of lead in it. So that is a fairly reliable way of figuring out how old a rock is, or at least getting an estimate. It's not going to be perfect. It'll be, you know, plus or minus 1 or 2%, but it's pretty good.
Just to say, I kind of accept what you're saying, but I did, whilst you were doing that, I asked ChatGPT one question, and I asked it, what assumptions are made in rock dating? Fairly non-leading, simple question, and it says
definitely non-leading. Go ahead.
Are you being sarcastic or?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, I know. But all I could have said, are there any assumptions, or presumably there are assumptions, or list me the assumptions. But I just said, what assumptions? It could have told me. It had free reign to say there are no assumptions. But it's nevertheless, it said several.
Okay, so what did it say? Let's talk about them.
It said, one, assumption, these decay rates have remained constant over time.
Yeah, so I already addressed that. These decay rates are these decay rates come from the laws of physics. So if you grant that the laws of physics stay the same, then the decay rates do stay the same.
The next assumption was, after formation, no parent or daughter isotopes entered or left the mineral.
Yeah, so those come from the laws of chemistry. We can talk about that too if you want. I was simplifying, of course, but sure.
Assumption 3, the starting conditions can be reasonably determined.
Also comes from chemistry.
The sample has not been contaminated.
also comes from chemistry. It seems like the sample not being contaminated is the same as assumption 2.
Yeah, the rock being dated represents the event of interest.
Yeah, that's, I mean, that we can just infer deductively.
It does not necessarily date when sedimentary grains originally formed, when a rock was deposited, unless dating.
Well, we're not talking about sedimentary grains, so.
And then important context, different dating methods are used for different time. Okay, that's interesting. Important context, different dating methods are used for different time ranges. Carbon-14 up to 50,000 years, uranium 8, I think you mentioned a couple of those. So the core assumptions.
The core assumptions are that the rate of decay is constant, and we've already talked about that. The other core assumption is that do you know what a parent isotope is?
I wouldn't say I'm that familiar.
Okay, so probably weren't. Okay, so there's some explaining that needs to be done even from ChatGPT's explanation. So basically, you have uranium, and we agree that uranium decays, right? And certain kinds of crystals, when they solidify, like imagine you have like a molten rock, and then it solidifies and turns into crystals. Certain kinds of crystals, they can have impurities in them when they solidify, when they form. And once they form, they're solid, so like stuff isn't going to come in and out, right? So there's a kind of crystal called a zircon crystal, and that kind of crystal, one of the impurities that it can take on very easily via chemistry is like just kind of standard chemistry. It can just replace one of the atoms, is a uranium atom. On the other hand, one of the impurities that it cannot take on very easily, in fact, it's nearly impossible for it to take on these impurities, are lead atoms. So you have a crystal, it's solid, so like nothing's getting in and out, it's not leaking, right? It's a solid crystal. And when it forms, when it solidifies, you can have some amount of uranium in it, but you will have very, very, very little amounts of lead in it, if any at all, just because of the chemistry of the crystal. And again, chemistry comes from the laws of physics, and that chemistry should be the same 100 years ago as it is today. And so once we have that crystal, we basically just have a clock. Things can't really get out unless you break the crystal, in which case you don't use that crystal. If the crystal's like shattered, just don't use it, right? You just use a crystal that like didn't break. Because like obviously, how are you going to use a broken crystal? So you have a crystal that isn't broken, so stuff couldn't get in and out. And you know that it can start with uranium in it. You know that it can't really start with lead in it. And then you go back and you look at it now, and it has lead in it. So the question is where does that lead come from? And that lead, the only explanation that we can offer is that that lead must have gotten there via radioactive decay. If you have a better explanation, I'm all ears, but nobody's come up with a good one.
Can't say I can, particularly. It's definitely food for thought. Because I'll tell you what I asked it. I said, can any amounts of variables be changed to make 6,000 years? Short answer, no, not without overturning large parts of physics, chemistry, and astronomy. Oh God, I need a coffee. Astronomy simultaneously to make Earth's rocks and 6,000
and geology.
Years old. It didn't say that one, but
no, but it's obviously there. We're talking about rocks.
Yeah, to make Earth's rocks only 6,000 years old instead of 4.5 billion years old, you would have to change multiple independent systems in ways that create far bigger problems than they solve.
So what I would suggest that you do is, rather than trying to find answers that agree with your beliefs, I'm not saying that that's what you're doing right now, but in the future, just go read. Go listen to people who are experts in this. Not people who just like learned about it from YouTube. And evaluate the evidence that you're presented. Evaluate it with an open mind and see what's more convincing. That all of these scientists for, hundreds of years, hundreds of thousands of scientists have gotten it all wrong, or is it just that like there are one or two fatal assumptions in your worldview that lead you to the incorrect conclusion? That's all I would recommend. But look, Gilligan, I am going to let you go because there's a lot of people waiting.
Yeah. I'm sure our paths will meet again. Sweet. Cheers. Thanks for that.
Take care, Gillian.
Thanks, Michael.
He was a fairly straightforward and decent flat earther in my view. Let's read some super chats and we'll move on to our next guest. From Eric S. with the $5. The fact that he took his wife to the hospital instead of a church shows that his actions are at least more sensible than his purported beliefs. Right, that's indeed the case. From Empiricist with the $5, you should swap the header and the subheader since the 6,000-year-old part is the actual topic, not the church lying. Yeah, I should, but like I don't have control to do that, unfortunately, right now. I don't think. Actually, maybe okay, I could change it. I'm not going to do it right now, though. From Skeet with the 5 Canuck bucks, trees are set to Earth's clock and do represent a year on Earth. Indeed, they do. From Skeet again with the 5 Canuck bucks. Oh my god, does he understand that an asteroid strike could destroy every tree on Earth? I don't follow the question. From Skeet again with the 2 Canuck bucks, read a book. From Dr. Fudge with the $5, I've heard of Bernoulli's law of hydrostatic equilibrium, but I've never listened to an album or anything. That's funny. So I was just referring to, there's a particular equation that I was referring to. Yeah, I was referring to this one, which is, I suppose it's just called Bernoulli's principle. My bad, I gave it the wrong name. Or Bernoulli's equation. It's a way of figuring out when you're in hydrostatic or perhaps even hydrodynamic equilibrium for like, you know, incompressible fluid flows that have certain nice properties. All right, let's bring up our next guest. Let's talk to B. B has been waiting patiently. B, how's it going?
Hey, doing all right. How are you?
I'm doing all right. B, how old do you think the Earth is?
I don't think we know.
Okay, why do you think so?
I feel like the assumptions made and the methodologies used do use a lot of assumptions and don't apply the principles that they also prove with those methodologies.
Can you give me an example?
So we were just talking about like radiometric dating. With that, to like your zircon example, one very simple, I guess, reply to that is that by dating using that, it assumes the isotope of uranium that was in place.
I don't follow what you mean. It assumes the isotope of uranium was in place. Was in place where?
That was in place. So which isotope of uranium?
Oh, well, we can tell which. So look, given the isotopes of lead that result, we know how that lead forms. These are called radiogenic lead isotopes. They only form via the decay chain that starts at uranium.
But which isotope of uranium?
So there's 2 relevant isotopes of uranium, uranium-235 and uranium-238, and these both lead to different radiogenic isotopes of lead, which are different. They are themselves different isotopes from common lead. So like when you find these radiogenic isotopes of lead in a crystal, it's clear that they aren't just regular lead. They came from radioactive decay.
Understood. So you're saying that each of the different isotopes of radiogenic uranium result in different measurable isotopes of lead.
Yep.
And the decay rates and half-lives of those have been tested within a crystallized, already entropic system, and not just.
I don't know what you mean by already entropic.
So crystallization is like the result and change of entropy, which is the decay rate.
The decay rate isn't an entropy thing.
That's what entropy is.
No, the decay rate is like a purely quantum mechanical. In fact, it's quantum mechanical and unitary, so it preserves entropy, but like it doesn't change it. The decay that you're thinking of, like this entropy as decay thing, is not the same kind of decay as the kind of decay that you have when we're talking about your radioactive decay.
I mean, it is. It's just a different type. because it is radioactive.
Well, my point is that radioactive decay is actually not an entropic process, right? It preserves the entropy of the system because it's a unitary process.
What do you mean by it preserves the entropy? That
So the entropy of a system is like
entropy?
the entropy of a system is like a number. The system has a certain amount of entropy in it. And
well, that's where it's at within its entropic cycle. That
sorry?
everything, the entropy is like the continual decay into the most, just a continual decay.
Well, no, I mean like you can just like entropy doesn't have to change. It doesn't have to increase. Like you could just have a system with an entropy that is unchanging. I mean, no, there is no law of physics that says that entropy has to
thermodynamics.
No, the second law of thermodynamics says that entropy never decreases in a closed system. It doesn't say that it always increases.
So it would have the same entropic rate.
No, you can have systems that have no change in entropy.
This is my first time hearing anybody say that.
Yeah, I mean, like there are processes called isentropic processes. These are things that you can do to a gas that the gas can be manipulated and its entropy doesn't change at all.
So you're saying that doesn't change the entropy, not that it sets entropy to 0.
Yeah, the entropy of a system is a number, right? And that number in a closed system, that number is expected to not decrease.
Right, the rate.
But it doesn't mean that it has to increase. It can also stay the same.
Right, the rate can stay the same.
It's not a rate that can stay the same. The value stays the same. Entropy is a number.
That represents the rate of decay.
No, it doesn't represent a rate of decay. It's just a number. It represents, I mean, technically speaking, it represents the number of microstates associated with the macrostate that it's in.
Which is
decay. It has nothing to do with decay. Have you taken a class in thermodynamics?
Not thermodynamics directly, no.
Where'd you learn this stuff about entropy?
Physics, chemistry.
Physics, chemistry. So not a physics class?
Those were comma. Physics, comma.
Like chemistry. What physics class did you take that told you that entropy is decay?
I mean, I wouldn't be able to like cite like which exact physics class. I took two,
like was this in high school or was this in college or?
I took physics.
Sorry, I didn't hear you. One more time?
I said no, I took physics in college.
Okay. Well, whatever professor you had, if they said that physics is decay, then they did you a disservice. Because it's just not, or sorry, if they said that entropy is decay, then they did you a disservice because it's just not true. If you go look into any thermodynamics textbook, it's just not, like they are unrelated. Well, I shouldn't say that they're unrelated. The way that we colloquially understand decay often can be understood through some sort of increasing entropy process. But like they are like not, they're like not, they're not like intrinsically linked.
It's the system forming to order and less order.
So the entropy of the entropy of a system is just a number. And typically, the way that this is typically taught, and maybe this is what you heard, is that if the entropy is higher, then it is a more disorderly system. And if the entropy is lower, then it is a less disorderly system.
And the concept of entropy is the formation of that order.
What?
The entropic rate is the change in that system in relation to the order.
I don't know what you mean by the entropic rate. Entropy is just a number, right? It's not a rate. It's just a number. And it's like a number that describes a particular system. And so that number can change depending on what you do to the system. If you cool it down, for example, that number will decrease. If you heat it up, that number will increase. if you're describing a gas,
right,
and you let that gas expand in a non-isentropic way, then that number will increase. Like, it's a number though, it's not a rate. And anyway, we're super off topic
so
here.
entropy, I don't feel like we are. I do feel like we've come to an impasse regarding the relation between entropy and decay and how that affects.
We probably have,
geometric data.
but the impasse is not agree to disagree. The impasse is, it seems like someone
I may have to look into this
if you
more
took this at a university, it seems like you had a terrible professor.
I mean, again, I may need to look into this more myself. Understanding how systems function and that they do kind of self-order, and that rate in which they do, and how they, not how, but the rate at which they do, and that they are becoming more ordered, expending less energy over time.
You mean less ordered?
Possibly, yes. That how ordered they are is changing, resultant of inability to expend energy over time. Is entropy.
No.
And that
so entropy, like I said, entropy isn't a rate. Entropy can describe how much, or entropy can give you an accounting of how much usable energy is remaining in a system.
Right.
But that's only in like one sense of the word. It's not like the broadest sense. It's not a particularly useful sense either if you're talking about more complicated things than just like steam engines. So, but this is all to say, the whole process of radiometric dating, it only relies on like a few things. It relies on things like the laws of physics were the same yesterday as they were today. And it relies on various chemical processes behaving, the same yesterday as they are today. And so,
right, and to kind of circle that
which
goes
assumption
into, like,
is which assumption is the problem?
That they're the same.
Okay, so what's the problem?
Heat can affect that.
Heat can affect what? Which part?
The rate of decay.
No, it can't.
I mean, we have
not radioactive decay.
The formation of the isotopes in which we're measuring that decay off of.
Yeah,
so
like the lead isotopes.
The starting point, right?
Yeah. I think it's lead 204 and lead 208.
The uranium 238 and 235.
Well, I'm talking about the daughter nuclides that we measure.
Right.
Yeah, so lead 204. Is it lead 204? Oh no, lead 204 is the primordial one. Lead 206 and lead 208 are the uranium one.
Right, so the measurement of the decay rate that then led to those daughter nucleotides.
Temperature doesn't affect that decay rate.
Right. It would affect the decay rate that is assumed and measured as the start of the isotope of the parent.
No, it doesn't affect the decay rate though. Right? Like these decay rates are constants. They're not changed by temperature.
It changes. I mean, they can be.
No, they can't.
Like that's like you're saying introducing heat cannot cause.
Yeah, it doesn't. Right. Yeah, that's false. You can't heat something up and make it decay faster or slower.
I mean, we know that you can.
That's absolutely not the case. And I would suggest, like, if you think so, present the evidence that that's the case.
I mean, it would take me it would take me time to find kind of the studies on increase, decrease of decay rate. One quasi-related, it is not temperature itself, is within our studies on time dilation, cesium,
Yeah, so
and that we see
that's not
decay rate
temperature.
change. Right.
And the decay rate is always unchanging in the rest frame of the atom doing the decaying. So time dilation doesn't change the decay rate in the rest frame of the thing doing the decaying.
Right. It assumes the same frame rate yesterday.
What frame rate?
As today.
Nobody's talking about a frame rate.
The frame rate of the measured isotopes.
Look, those things were on Earth. We're on Earth.
Yes,
so we're moving at the same speed. We're moving at roughly the same speed as as all of the other things on Earth. Things would have to be going near the speed of light to have any sort of effect. So are you suggesting that these zirconium crystals actually, and interestingly enough, even if this were an effect, it would actually make the Earth older than it actually is. like we would think that like if we think that the Earth is 4.5 billion years old, but time dilation was making us be wrong about that, then the Earth would actually be far older than that. Because all that time dilation can do from our perspective is make things appear to decay slower, because their internal clock is ticking slower. But from their perspective, they always decay at the same rate. So time dilation doesn't help you, temperature doesn't help you.
Only looking at it as the frame rate perspective of going faster, like redshift and blue shift.
Mm-hmm.
So only looking at the redshift change to say that it's going slower when we do that does not then take into account that, oh, it's going faster when we blue shift.
Yeah, so there's no way to make there's no frame of reference that you can be in where it looks like somebody else's clock is moving faster than yours. No such frame of reference exists. In special relativity, I should say.
That we can perceive.
No, it's just physically impossible. The laws of physics forbid it.
I mean, going towards like absolute zero.
Temperature has nothing to do with this.
I mean, it kind of does. If we're measuring time using cesium clocks as...
Cesium, yeah. We can also measure time with like the amount of time it takes for the Earth to go around the sun. We don't have to rely on atomic clocks in order to measure how long it's been since the Earth formed a certain crystal.
I mean, kind of that using how long it takes to go around the sun is also quite a few assumptions.
Yeah, I mean, like, sure.
It is not outside observed for the most part.
It's not outside observed. We observe it from our planet.
Kind of.
Not kind of. We definitely do. We didn't have to leave our planet to know that the Earth goes around the sun.
Orbit, not that it goes around the sun.
Sorry?
How long? Not that it goes around the sun, but when we reach the same place in our orbit.
So we define a year to be the amount of time it takes for the Earth to go around the sun. And again, that number, that amount of time, we can know that amount of time it's not exactly fixed, but it's roughly fixed via the laws of physics, in particular Kepler's laws and Newton's universal law of gravitation.
Right, which also assumes a closed system.
Newton's universal law of gravitation doesn't assume a closed system, no. Neither do Kepler's laws.
The application of it to a standardized orbital rate?
Nope.
Would.
Nope, doesn't assume a closed system.
It does.
No. No, in fact, the reason why I said that it's not exactly 1 year always, and it doesn't, like, I was very specific, and when I was making the claim that it's like not perfectly unchanging. The reason why I was being very precise is because you can have perturbations from the other planets, and those perturbations can cause fluctuations in the length of the year on the order of like seconds. But then they fluctuate back. So like on average, the length of a year is unchanged. but a given year might be a few seconds longer, a few seconds shorter, etc.
Right. And my statement was to say that just as that can affect it, other things can as well.
Can
And
affect
by
what?
assuming
The
that
radioactive decay rate? Because the amount of time it takes for the Earth to go around the sun doesn't affect the radioactive decay rate. The radioactive decay rate is just what it is. How we measure it depends on, how we decide to measure it.
Exactly.
And the point is that radioactive decay rate is fixed. It's a law of physics.
It is fixed within its closed system.
These are laws of physics. Decay rates are they are derivable from laws of physics.
Correct, assuming a closed system. So
I don't know what you mean.
what
Assuming what's a closed system? Like, yeah, if you take a uranium atom and you bombard it with, neutrons, yeah, you can cause it to split. Right. That's what's called that's what a nuclear bomb does, but that's not decay.
Again, I would need to look into more whether anything can.
We grant that.
My understanding is that we can increase the decay rate. We can change the decay.
No. So what you can do is you can induce decay artificially.
Right.
But that doesn't change the decay rate. The decay rate is a constant. So what you can do is you can shoot neutrons at uranium.
I'm using the term.
And change the isotope. And then the isotope will have a different decay rate because it's a different isotope. Or you can shoot fast neutrons at uranium, and then it'll just break the uranium in half. You can do a similar thing with the neutrinos. I don't think that this has been demonstrated with uranium, but it's been demonstrated with radioactive versions of oxygen. If you shoot neutrinos at oxygen, you can basically break the oxygen apart. But that is completely unrelated to the decay rate. The decay rate is a constant.
Right.
You can induce the decay rate and make it go faster if you want by doing stuff to the atoms, by breaking them, but that's not decay anymore.
Right, but it influences our measurability of the decay, assuming that
not really.
It's just on the decay rate. I
Not
mean,
really.
if we're aging something based just off of the decay rate, and there's an unknown influence on it that induces decay outside, that induces decay.
So for example, it's known that again, I think it was a radioactive isotope of oxygen that you could change that you could change the decay rate of by bombarding it with neutrinos, and I think it changed by 0.01%. So this is not a significant amount. In fact, that would be a rounding error in the amount of years that we can calculate to, because there are other bigger sources of error, like the way that we count the number of uranium atoms and the number of lead atoms has a bigger rounding error than the amount the decay rate would have changed by as a result of neutrino bombardment. But more to the issue, if you want to somehow make the decay rate so fast by artificially inducing decay or something like this, then so that it all fits within, say, 6,000 years or something like this, you run into a much deeper problem, which is that if all of the uranium, if all of the, say, the lead-206 and the lead-208 that we have on Earth, which we have a pretty big amount, if all of that came from uranium decaying, or artificially decaying rather, over the course of, say, 6,000 years, that process releases so much heat that the Earth would be vaporized.
Assuming it occurred post-formation of the Earth.
No, the heat just couldn't have gotten away in time. The Earth would have been 5,000 degrees. And it would still be 5,000 degrees, even if this happened 6,000 years ago.
I would need to look on the math of that. That sounds
I'm
like
sure
it
you would.
assumes...
I've done the math. In fact, I think I did it in a TikTok video that I posted online.
Does it assume the heat release based on current conditions?
No, it just assumes standard black body radiation.
It then assumes how old or how long.
Yeah, so assume that all of that process happened 6,000 years ago. Assume that it was all of the decay was really, really, really fast for say it took place over 7 days, for example, 6,000 years ago. and then
That
the Earth has
doesn't
had
how we
6,000 years to cool off, the Earth would still be thousands of degrees Fahrenheit. Like you
That goes into
underestimate how
assuming
much energy is released during radioactive decay.
What do you mean?
During radioactive decay, a lot of energy is released.
Right.
And so
And the
if
Earth
you're
was
so
in
so if you take all of that
magnetic
energy
state
and you spread it out over 4.5 billion years, then it's then it's not really an issue. It's like a drop in the bucket, really, because the Earth is big. But if you compress that all to happen over at most 6,000 years, that energy takes time to leave, and there just wouldn't be enough time for the Earth to radiate it away and, you know, not vaporize.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the heat release equations or math,
So I
but
do.
assuming that's correct, right? I'm assuming that's correct. I I guess that doesn't change my opinion on the fact, because the Earth's sitting there in a magmatic state, much
It
like
wouldn't
we
be
think it
magma.
was.
It would be vaporized. We're talking
So I'm not talking
gas.
over like 6 step. And not plasma.
Well, yeah, I mean, plasma is just a kind of gas, so.
Oof. Yeah. I guess this goes into what I mean by the age of the Earth, and how it's used changeably colloquially. When people talk about the age being 4.5, 6 billion years old, we also think that's like when life started on it, ish.
No,
give or take.
so the Earth being 4.5 billion years old is independent of when life started on it. That's when the solar system formed, and that's when the Earth coalesced from all the smaller rocky bodies, right?
Right. And with that, to what I was trying to talk about before, that decay rate and that release of energy assumes that it was all done after it was formed. That some of that was not occurring prior to the formation of the Earth itself.
It
sounds like. I didn't see your video. I might have to look it up.
I'm a little confused. I'm a little confused, right? Because look, like, are you just suggesting that the Earth formed with the radiogenic lead on it? Because then where did that radiogenic lead come from?
The isotopes that were formed within whatever process formed any of our elements.
Well, if your position is that it was a divine being, then you're suggesting magic, it sounds like.
I mean, I'm not. I'm using the same framework and worldview that you have.
So the worldview that I have is that these
roughly
elements form in different processes, and in particular, radiogenic lead forms via the uranium and the thorium decay chains. The thorium decay chain includes uranium. And in which case, it takes time for that uranium and lead to get there.
Okay. And a good bulk of that formation, whether it is on Earth or other planets or anywhere, was done prior to the formation of any galaxies, solar systems, etc.
Well, that's not necessarily the case. It really depends on when the amount of uranium in the universe peaked, because it takes time for the universe to get ready to be able to make uranium. Making uranium requires certain kinds of stars, and it requires them to live a certain amount of time, and so on and so forth. But I mean, like, look, if you're willing to grant that like a universe existed beforehand with uranium with uranium in it, and that there was enough time for the uranium to exist for it to decay into lead before the Earth formed, then you already agree with me. You just have a weird take on, like, some weird idiosyncratic take on Earth specifically.
Well, it's not Earth specifically. My take on it is just that the science currently does not fully prove, and I don't mean that like as in law, but as in just like passing the burden of proof bar.
How can you say that
that
when you've shown today that like you don't really know the science? Which is like it's not a slight. Like most people don't know the science of radioactive decay. But it just seems like you came up.
I mean, we just got into an argument about whether like what entropy is, how we define it, and whether radioactive decay
your
is
understanding of entropy was the understanding of a layperson. It wasn't an understanding of somebody who actually knows about the topic.
Okay.
What I'm saying is that like it seems like you're saying that that like there's, you know, the evidence doesn't pass the sniff test, it doesn't pass the burden of proof, but like you probably couldn't articulate what the evidence is in its entirety and like how it works. So it just,
well, I'm just stating that that what we're stating regarding the age of the Earth is more or less purely induction.
That's the entire scientific process.
To an extent, it is the first part of the scientific process. It's what takes something from a hypothesis to a theory, etc.
Yeah. So if you have a problem with induction, then I don't know, man.
Not directly, but to call it as a fact is
so you don't think that there are any scientific facts?
That's not what I said. I said to call just induction, not a result of induction, a fact is the issue.
Do you think that the sun is going to rise tomorrow?
Yes, but that's not a scientific fact.
Is it a fact that the sun will rise tomorrow?
No.
Okay.
It depends on your definition of fact, like that it's provable, true or false. Yes, if you mean something that is true, I would say that is not a claim I could make.
Okay. I think that if your standard of evidence, one more question. Do you believe that the sun will rise tomorrow?
Yes.
Okay, so then you're fine with the level of induction that's used in science as well.
Yes, when applied in good faith.
Which is what scientists generally do. So I don't know what the contention is here.
I mean, that gets into pressure to publish, etc. But
are you a scientist?
Something completely different. No, I'm not a practicing scientist. I work in tech.
Okay. How many like practicing scientists do you know?
Currently none.
So like,
but I'm familiar with that.
How can you make any definitive claims or any, you know, confident claims about, you know, whether or not science is practiced in good faith, what the cause of that is, whether it's because of the the pressure to publish, etc. Like it just seems like you're kind of speaking with no knowledge on the subject.
So you don't think any scientists like
that's not the claim.
Bad faith? Right. I'm saying
the claim is that the point is that you are skeptical because you think that scientists aren't necessarily acting in good faith, because you think that there is a pressure to publish. So it's not just that there exists at least one scientist that is experiencing this pressure to publish. It's that there are sufficiently many that justifies your skepticism of the entire scientific industry.
I do think that is a part of it because of the downstream effects. Because say one paper that
you're not familiar with the scientific community, right?
I mean, I am. If you're talking about in its current state, I'm not.
But you're not a scientist and you don't know any scientists.
Right, but our world literature, everything regarding our history is based off of these things, their foundations, and the work that you do is built off of the work of those prior scientists.
It just sounds like your view is that you are justified in skepticism because you have a particular opinion about how science is done, with not really any evidence to base it off of.
I'm applying the scientific method to...
Except the scientific method requires evidence.
Which there is. You're saying there's no evidence of pressure to publish?
What is the evidence that scientists are acting in bad faith as like an overwhelming problem?
So by overwhelming problem, we're agreeing to the term that it affects what is published to the lay people to consume and relay to their worldview.
What I mean by overwhelming problem is that there is sufficient bad faith happening. This is your claim, that there is sufficient bad faith happening in the scientific community amongst scientific researchers to lead you to question the validity of the claims, and not just question, to disbelieve the claims that are made, because you are so skeptical because the science is conducted in such bad faith. It's not just like that there exists a scientist who is, acting in bad faith, or that there exists a scientist that has a pressure to publish. This is like, in order to come to the conclusion that you're coming to, that you must distrust the entire process, that you must distrust the entire consensus, is not that there's just some small minority. It's that this is like an overwhelming problem.
I wouldn't say fully distrust, but to be skeptical of, yes. I don't think there are many scientists that would argue that if it is published, you should agree with it.
I think that most scientists would probably say that if it is published in a peer-reviewed journal, of course, if it's just like thrown up on the internet, like anything goes. If it's published in a peer-reviewed journal, I would bet most scientists would say that there are likely no glaring issues with the science that's presented.
I don't know. I've read things about various journals, being reputable for so long and then finding out that they're not.
Like
and
what?
That comes from a paper, two papers. I'd need to get the specifics. Like these are vague memories of things that I've read throughout the years.
Okay. I mean, it seems like the skepticism that you hold comes from kind of like a vibes-based understanding of the way that science is conducted and the reliability of the scientific process.
Not really. And to be fair, I feel like saying, "Oh, don't be skeptical of science," or skeptical of the results that are claimed from the scientific method, is a wild viewpoint. To say that once one person publishes it, it must be taken as fact.
No, so that's not the claim. Sorry, to be clear, that's not the claim. The claim is that once something has been done over and over enough times that it is now accepted amongst scientists as consensus, at that point you should believe it. That's just good epistemology. Unless you are yourself an expert in that very specific field, in which case, by all means, challenge the status quo, etc., etc. If you are not an expert, you are almost certainly not equipped to bring valid critiques of the scientific consensus, and so you're just more likely to be wrong than they are.
But by doing that and having that viewpoint, it also assumes non-conflation of additional sciences that even the people who published it aren't technical experts in.
I have no idea what that sentence meant. Can you elaborate?
So a geologist
Mm-hmm.
may not be an expert in physics.
Sure.
Right. So a paper published in a geology publication
Mm-hmm.
May include some physics.
Mm-hmm.
By your statement, it would then need somebody who is both an expert in geology and an expert in physics. Like it goes into the collaborative effort of like publications.
No, you don't need that. No. You're misunderstanding my point. My point is that if you're a geologist, what you should do, and this is what geologists actually do,
right? You're saying I'm a scientist. Trust me, bro.
No, that's not at all what I'm saying. Let me finish. My point is that if you're a geologist, say, and you need to go pull some, you need to rely on some, some physics thing, right? What you do is maybe you go ask a physicist what the answer is, or maybe you go pull up a physics textbook, or maybe you go, I don't know, you go look for a review of the physics literature, and then you just find the relevant quote, and you just cite it. Because as a geologist, you are not equipped to question and reform the physics consensus. So The geologists do exactly what I'm suggesting. The geologists, they will rely on the chemists and the physicists, and they will rely on their scientific consensus because they don't know physics and chemistry. I mean, to some extent they will, but they're not experts in these fields. And so they're doing what I'm suggesting you do, which is just, if you're not an expert in a field, rely on the consensus of that field.
Right, which creates a chain of, oh, they're not an expert in that. So when we use all these various disparate fields to then defend and build arguments within the scientific method,
it all relies on consensus. Yeah, and the chain is consensus. Yeah, the chain comes from a consensus across different fields. Yeah, and that's good epistemology.
To some extent, yes, agreed.
In fact, that is arguably the best epistemology that we have access to.
More or less agreed, yes.
So then why aren't you doing it?
I am.
No, you're not. You're distrusting consensus rather than realizing your own failings and being like, yeah, so I probably don't understand this as well as the people who do understand it. So like, I'm just going to assume that the people who do understand it better than I do, and that they're more likely to be correct than I am.
I'm having a healthy skepticism of the
application. No, your skepticism is not healthy.
Because I don't agree.
Your skepticism is not healthy because it leads you to bad conclusions.
What conclusion is that?
Like that we can't know how old the Earth is, for example. By the way, the degree of skepticism that you're offering is the same degree of skepticism that flat earthers offer.
I would disagree with that.
I've spoken with thousands of flat earthers and I've spoken with thousands of young earth creationists, and the reasoning is identical. It's, yeah, but how can you trust all of the scientists? What, you're just appealing to authority? What, you want me to trust consensus?
Well, I bring up the direct application, not the scientific claims themselves, but the application of them.
Yeah, so the scientific claim is that the Earth is 4.5 billion years old, and you are skeptical of that.
That is an application of multiple scientific claims.
That is so in some sense, yes. In the sense that basically all scientific claims rely on, kind of lower level scientific claims.
Right. So I'm agreeing A is true, B is true, C is true, D is true. I'm just not.
You just don't agree E is true.
B plus C plus D.
Oh, okay. Wait a minute. Hold on. Okay. So let's this you blundered. You done fucked up.
I don't feel like I did.
I'm kidding. Well, I'm a little kidding. I'm kidding in the aggro, but I'm not kidding in the blunder bit. So your claim is that Proposition 1, A is true. Proposition 2, B is true. Proposition 3, C is true. You agree with all of those. Conclusion, A plus B plus C is not necessarily true. This is a true contradiction, by the way. You're like affirming a contradiction.
I mean, I'm not.
Yeah, so...
But yes, that is more or less my statement.
This is a contradiction, yeah. So you're contradicting yourself then.
A, B, and C all being true does not mean that all of those three things combined equate to a fourth.
Oh, but that's not what you said.
I don't think you let me finish then, because I was saying A is true, B is true, C is true. However, I'm not agreeing that A plus B plus C means that D is true.
Oh, well, then you're just ill-informed, right?
Well, no. I'm just saying that I don't feel like the evidence regarding the application of those things to each other is sufficient to result in the next claim.
Okay, but as per this conversation that we've had, you're just not really sure how these things work to begin with. So it seems like the process of combining A, B, and C is just not something that you're familiar with. So how can you say that combining A, B, and C to come to some conclusion D is true, or is not reliable? I should say is not true.
I'm not saying it's not directly. That gets into where I'm just saying like we don't know, but what I'm saying is that because I am familiar somewhat with it, obviously not as much as you, how it is currently at least. knowing that we're relying on science throughout the years to then build a constantly like changing interpretation of it, and then saying, oh, we can't go back to the science that we thought was true before and say, oh, how we're interpreting it.
Do you agree with this this syllogism?
Such that A plus B is true. I feel like I'm not seeing some of the writing on the right, but assuming what it says.
Let me make. I can make it bigger. How's that? Is that better?
Yeah. Yes. No, I don't think P4 is actually the scientific consensus that we're discussing, because they're not saying if A plus B plus C is true. They're saying that A plus B plus C equals D.
Well, no, I mean you were saying, so look, so you were saying that you agree with the scientific consensus about A and about B and about C.
Right.
You think that those things are true. And then it's also a fact that from, if you go and ask scientists that if you grant that A, B, and C are true, then it immediately follows that D is true. Like if you grant that zircon crystals rarely form with lead in them and can easily form with uranium in them, that's A. If B is the radioactive decay rate of lead or of uranium is a constant, and C, the conditions, the relevant conditions that would affect the decay rates, induced or otherwise, of radioactive decay or in the past were basically the same as they are today. If you accept all of those, then the conclusion that the scientific consensus comes to is if all of those things are true, then it follows that the Earth is 4.5 billion years old.
Right. So I do agree that is the scientific consensus.
Right. And so you've already established that you don't believe that you're fine with the scientific consensus, right?
Well, I don't believe that scientific consensus is due to the application of them together. That it is just an assumption.
Then you're just misinformed, right?
Well, I'm not.
Look. So who's more likely to be right here about this? Who's more likely to be right about this? The people who spent their lives working on this area about that. Yeah, if these three assumptions are true, then the Earth is indeed 4.5 billion years old, and that's all you need. Or you, who's more likely to be correct about the implication in P4?
That depends on bias.
All else being equal, who's more likely to be correct? The people who spent their lives studying the subject, or you, somebody who hasn't? And when I say the people, I mean like the collection of all of the people, not just like one guy.
All else being equal, yes, to people who study it.
Okay, so what is the determining fact that makes it so that all else are not equal?
That there is an impetus to draw conclusions, as opposed to stating that these are the known facts. There's an impetus to try to create a worldview surrounding those facts outside
That's the conspiracy.
of just empirical evidence.
So then why did it take until the 1950s for this to happen?
What do you mean?
The scientific consensus was not that the Earth was 4.5 billion years old until the 1950s, and really not until like the 1960s.
Yeah, I don't even. I don't know when that was actually published. I would have actually thought
it was first published in the 50s, and then it was further verified at the end of the 50s, and then going into the 60s, and by the middle of the 60s, it was widely accepted as true. It was like a 10-year process.
Based on our technology at the time.
No, based on physics.
And our technology to measure those things.
I mean, yeah. But so if there was an impetus to impose some sort of worldview, why did they wait until the 50s to do that? Because people were speculating about the age of the Earth beforehand, but there was no solidification of some scientific consensus up until like the 60s.
Right, because we didn't really have the technology to measure it or to come up with any of that.
According to you, we still don't.
I mean, no, I'm saying we're still relying on, or we could be very much so, relying on that same paper that was published in the 1950s.
No, we're not relying on a single paper, no.
Well, not a single paper. I'm saying that the chain of events and the change of our understanding is not always included in the further publications. In
what?
That we
I have no idea what that means.
We rely on the assumptions and our measurable data at various times in the past, and we just forward them along due to that.
People have repeated these experiments over and over and over again and come to the same conclusions.
And it changes, like you were mentioning.
It hasn't changed. It hasn't changed significantly since like the 60s ish.
And our ability to measure things hasn't changed either.
It's gotten way better. Like we're able to make way more precise measurements now. Fortunately, the tools that we had access to in the 50s and 60s were sufficiently good that the extra precision just gives you an extra decimal point. It didn't actually change the answer significantly, right?
Yeah, I feel like I've made my point regarding what I feel is healthy skepticism regarding the claims being made with the evidence that we have, and you disagree.
Yep, I don't think that there's anything healthy about it. But thank you for being here. I understand that it's probably time for me to let you go.
Yeah.
Take care. Yeah, there's like it's the same logic the flat earthers use, right? Like I'm not wrong about that. I don't think I'm crazy. From Seabar with the $3, thank you so much, Seabar. Always good to see you. And from Discordant Rhyme with the 7 Canuck bucks, scientifically illiterate apologists are insufferable. They mistake their ignorance for clarity. Yeah, I mean, like, just from the beginning of that conversation, it was pretty clear to me that he wasn't like particularly knowledgeable about these questions about radiometric dating, right? And yet he has very strong opinions about them. From Tim Welsh with the $5, I wish they understood that scientists try to prove each other wrong daily. Yeah, that's also a thing. Especially in the early days before a scientific consensus forms. From Ekipo with the €5, I'm bemused by people living in the 21st century and being cynical about science. They're hypocrites. Yeah, I don't know why this happens. From Topazadam with the £5, love your content. I could listen to these debates all day. Thank you. Well, thank you. From Vicinal Elk with the $5, I believe Earth is a simulation that is only as old as I am and everyone else is just an NPC in it. When I die, the world simulation ends. Yeah, me too. From I Am the Big Cheese with the $5, sometimes a good question to ask is, how would the science look if we did know the age of X is Y years old? That's a good point. All right, let's bring up our next guest. Let's talk to Storytellers Society. Storytellers, how's it going?
Hi, good, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing A-okay. Storytellers, how old do you think the Earth is?
I'm gonna just switch tactic a little bit and go with your first statement. Your church lied to you.
But the topic is the second statement. So,
if that's okay, we can go with the first one.
No, we can't, because it's my live stream. Let's talk to Sneaky Ginger from Discord. Sneaky Ginger, how's it going?
Wonderful. How's it going?
I'm doing A-okay. Sneaky Ginger, how old do you think the Earth is?
I believe. Well, first of all, I'm a Christian.
Okay, that's fair.
I don't know. I necessarily agree with the 6,000 year theory. I believe that is from Jewish genealogy.
Yep, that's
more
where it
than
comes
it
from.
is.
Well, it comes from a Christian, but yes, it does come from genealogy in the Hebrew Bible. Yeah.
Yeah, and I believe, well, the Torah goes back generationally all the way back to Adam. And so then we get the Bible, we get our Old Testament from the Torah.
Well, and the
and
rest
so
of the Hebrew Bible.
generationally, I think. Well, yeah, exactly. But I believe that generationally is where the 6,000 years come from, and I think that's where a lot of Christians put that 6,000 year like confirmation number on.
Yeah, that's
my
exactly where it
point
comes from.
is that there's another scripture in the Bible that talks about God's time and our time is not measured the same. A day of our time is 1,000 years of His time.
Yep, that's a thing that it says. But look,
yeah, and so
it sounds like you just don't think that the Earth is young.
I don't necessarily think it's young, but I don't necessarily think it's 4 million years old or 4 billion years old. I apologize, 4 billion years old. It's somewhere in between. I feel like and that's because I'm a creationist. I believe in the creation theory.
So
or the creation.
Interestingly enough, somewhere between, like exactly halfway between 6,000 years and 4.5 billion years. I shouldn't say exactly. Nearly halfway between 6,000 years and 4.5 billion years is about 2.25 billion years. So like you think that it's like 2.5 or 2.25 billion years old?
I don't know if I necessarily want to put a number on it as far as how old it is, because in my worldview, it's not necessarily relevant, like how old it really is, because I'm here. We're all here. So like ultimately, we're here. We're here. It's happening. Life's happening. We're moving forward, and all we're doing is marching towards the end of it all. And how it ends, you believe it ends with.
And that's a totally respectable view. If this just doesn't matter to you, that's fine. But then why come up?
Well, so I wanted to ask some questions about. I was listening to the guy talking about the uranium decay and stuff, and I have looked a couple things up, and I wanted to know what. And you sound like you're very knowledgeable on this, and I'm not. I'm ignorant. I'm scientifically ignorant as far as it goes. And maybe this isn't the correct forum to ask these questions, but
it's not. But you're fortunately already in the right place to ask those questions. The Discord server.
Thank you for indulging.
Yeah. So I am going to let you go in a minute, but the Discord server that you're currently in is a great place to ask those questions.
Okay.
Because there's tons of knowledgeable people here. So I'm going to let you go, but feel free to stick around in the Discord, and then you don't even have to talk to people. You can just ask questions with text, and people will like kindly enough explain things to you, as long as you're not a dickhead.
No, definitely not.
All right.
I try not to let things change my worldview, because I believe what I believe. But anyway.
But you can at least get answers to your questions.
Yeah. I was listening to that guy talk about uranium decay and whatnot, and I was curious, what are scientists seeing? I mean, it's not just equations, I would imagine. I imagine they're physically seeing something that leads them to. Yeah, right. And they're probably physically seeing something, right? Like,
well, it's measurements.
In the uranium.
You make measurements with machines. But look, I am going to let you go, because today is not Ask a Physicist Day. But thank you for being here, Sneaky Ginger, and good luck with your questions. I do have to be strict about that, because I don't make the rules, I just enforce them. All right, let's talk to Jacob. Jacob, how's it going? Jacob? Jacob? Jacob?
Yo, sorry about that.
You're fine.
I just got back.
You're good, you're good.
But I do not believe that the world is 6,000 years old. And I think a lot of Christians have been like falsified into that belief. I would like to explain that if you want to hear it.
It's not the topic today, but thank you for being here.
So
he didn't really give me a chance to say, yes, I would like to hear that, did he? From I Am the Big Cheese with the $10, if there was a agenda conspiracy in science, why would it be promoting this worldview? If it is money, that's hard to see in the yellow, it would be more lucrative if promoted Christianity. It all feels dog whistle to a certain question. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. From Nectu with the $6.16. Thank you so much, Nectu. Just wanted to throw a little money your way because I can. Happy streams. Well, I appreciate you. And from Shane Strife with the $2, thank you for your donation. Well, I appreciate you. Oh, no, you didn't say that. I'm thanking you for your donation. From a Dwayne Warren with the $5, I came to the Discord under a different name, and to be fair, the people there are very disrespectful, even if you are polite, if you are religious. There are religious people who are in the Discord that have no issue. If I remember correctly, there was some, like, contested stuff with, like, gay people, and, like, you can't be homophobic, even if you're polite about it, right? If I'm remembering your case properly, like, you can't be homophobic. Maybe that wasn't you, maybe I'm thinking of somebody else, but like... All right, let's talk to Mackle No Limit. Mackle No Limit, how's it going? Oh, and they left. Okay, let's talk to Natural Balance. Okay, Natural Balance, waiting for you. God, today sucks. Well, today's going to suck. Because I don't even get to have coffee today. All right, looks like this person's not joining. Let's talk to Author. Author Mick. Why no coffee today? Because the doctor says so. I have a scan later. All right, this person's not joining. Let's talk to Joshua. Joshua, how's it going?
Good. Can you hear me?
I can. Joshua, how old do you think the Earth is?
So I've talked to you before about this, and
oh, we have?
I'm on the fence about this, and I was hoping that you might be able to help me, because I, for the longest time, have believed that the Earth is young, that it's 6,000 years old, and I have arguments for it.
Yep.
But I am on the fence, and
sure.
I was wondering if you could help me look into the actual text and determine if they're even like saying certainly that the Earth is 6,000 years old in the text.
Probably the right place to go for that, because I'm not a biblical scholar, right? Like, I don't speak biblical Hebrew. Like, I can read it, but I can't understand it without translating. Probably the right person to go to is someone named Dalton, the Bible guy, or alternatively, Justin, Deconstruction Zone. Both of them know biblical Hebrew. Both of them are, as long as you're coming at them in like good faith, both of them are very kind, and they'll be happy to answer your questions in that.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So if you want to find them, they're both on TikTok. So just search for @Deconstruction Zone or search for @The Bible Guy, and they'll be like probably the top two guys that pop up when you search those names.
Okay. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, of course. Good luck. Okay, let's bring up our next guest. Yeah, it's just like I could probably like try to help, but it's just better off going to somebody who like knows the language well. Yeah, Justin will bully you if you come in hot. That's true. Brain Wiggle, how's it going?
Yeah, how's it going? You right?
Yeah, I'm doing okay. Brain Wiggle, how old do you think the Earth is?
I can't put an exact number on it, but obviously between 6,000, who knows, something like that.
Okay, so like on the order of thousands of years, right?
Yeah, I'm not going to go with billions or millions.
Okay, and why do you think so?
Well, worldviews, basically. I think we can look at the same evidence, but just come to different conclusions.
So like you look at, for example, let's say that you look at tree ring data, right? We all know that trees grow one ring every year, right? They grow a dark ring in the winter, and they grow a light ring in the summer, and summer and winter happen year after year.
Some do and some don't. Like
well, yeah. So the trees that live in temperate areas that actually have seasons, not all areas of the world have seasons, in which case you're not going to see tree rings necessarily. But in the places of the world, like, you know, Europe or like the temperate parts of the United States, these places, they do have tree rings, right? And they correspond to a year.
They have tree rings, and I think actually the common idea is actually that they just tend to grow rings based on drought, cold snaps. I'm not expert in this, but
so they're growth cycles.
They're cycles based on seasonal changes.
Yep. And seasons, importantly, seasons happen every year.
Obviously, yeah. In some places they don't. And then obviously some seasons are more temperate, even if it's in the same area.
Right. So that'll change the size.
Grow 2 rings in a year.
That'll change the size and the brightness of the rings, but it won't change the number of rings. Right.
Some rings can be very tiny that are just really
yeah,
hard
sure.
to
And so you put them underneath a microscope.
Yeah, and then you can kind of predict. In theory,
yeah. So
generally speaking, yeah.
So we can go look at tree ring data, and we can stitch the piece of data together, and go back 8,000 plus years.
Based on what the longest living tree today, or based on the tree that
no, based on so there's a kind of tree in, well, it is sort of using the longest living trees today, but it's not quite the same. So there's a species of tree called the bristlecone pine. The bristlecone pine it's like the oldest, as far as we know. It's the tree that can like live the longest. And so what you can do is you can basically just take the tree ring data from a living bristlecone pine, and you can overlay it with the tree ring data for a formerly dead, or for a dead bristlecone pine, and then you can line up the width of the tree rings, and you can use that to figure out when was the dead one born. And then you can take the dead one and you can line it up with an even older one, and you can line up the widths of the tree rings to figure out when the even older one was born. You can do this with a lot of trees, and you can go back, like you can verify. This is not like estimates. These are like verified dendrochronologies. You can verify, at least for bristlecone pines, you can go back around 8,500 years.
Okay. And then I would question basically the assumptions that were made in counts, right? They would be assuming that every year, obviously, one ring is formed. You could probably say that in some of the years, 2 rings were formed, and in another year, none of them formed, because, you know, the temperate climate, wherever that area was, just wasn't consistent all the time.
Yeah, so on what grounds would you have to think that there is such a inconsistency?
Weather patterns, changes, rainfall, forest fires, I don't know, you name it. There's so many
forest fires don't change tree rings. Rainfalls just make different amounts of rainfall just changes the width of the tree rings.
Yeah, but that tree's been burnt down that used to live there, and the ecosystem.
If a tree is burnt down,
now that tree has more. Yeah, now that tree has more nutrition to grow faster, so it'll grow more rings.
But it doesn't grow more rings. If it has more nutrition, it doesn't grow more rings. It's just the rings are wider because it grows more.
It grows faster.
Yeah, but it doesn't get more rings.
But that is the science. The ring growth is based on the core of the tree and how it just expands, right, naturally, because that's growth.
Yeah. So that gives you different widths of rings. That doesn't give you additional rings. In order to see additional rings, you need to see different periods of growth and non-growth. So the tree rings form when you have a season of growth and then a season of not growth.
I'm no expert in this, but I've looked at, obviously, research looking at this, and even just normal whatever they're called that study trees. I don't know what they're called. They say that it's a good estimate, but it's not a perfect science, because trees can give you 2 rings a year, right? Things like that. They can give you no ring even, right? Because it just didn't grow that year that well. So it's not a set science, right? You can estimate, but you can't be precise. That's what I'm saying.
So it seems like your skepticism here is based off of something. And look, I'm not a dendrochronologist either. Neither of us are dendrochronologists. So why are you being so skeptical of their results?
I'm repeating what they're saying, right? They're the ones that are saying that you can't use it to a degree where you can be certain.
Oh, but
you can.
Au contraire, they say otherwise. They say otherwise, that you can get to very high degrees of accuracy, especially when you can overlap tree ring data with multiple trees.
Yeah, I'm sure some do, and then the other ones that I've read, this is going back a bit, they say otherwise. Science is forming your opinion and trying to replicate things by observing, looking at it, and testing the data.
So
right?
would you say
they can
that
argue amongst themselves, right?
Would you say that like the scientific consensus amongst botanists is that tree rings are not a reliable way of coming to how old something is?
Consensus.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking about.
I would think there would be a few, let's say, things that you'd have to kind of prove repeatedly, right? And then look at the data objectively, where that always fits, that specific ecosystem, that specific tree, that genus of the tree.
You're not really answering my question.
These are the things that I remember them saying, right?
You're not really answering my question, though.
Consensus.
Okay, you don't think that there is a consensus?
I don't really think they have an actual consensus. Not an exact consensus. I think it's being argued, so it's not set.
You think that this is okay? So then why is it that like there isn't Wikipedia is actually a good place to find consensus, and you can just go to there's a fairly long Wikipedia article on dendrochronology, which goes into the detail of how using tree rings one may determine the age of things. And there's tons and tons of sources for this article. There's 63 sources for this article. So on what grounds are you saying that that dendrochronology is not like a reliable way of dating things is not, or that dendrochronology is a reliable way of dating things is not scientific consensus?
I would say when they're arguing amongst themselves, right, they are still arguing whether it is.
Okay, can you provide me any evidence of this?
Well, at the moment, no, but
So then how do you know that it's true?
Go back and read. I'm just referencing what I've read in the past, but I wouldn't be able to obviously, pull up anything right now from my head, right? I don't want to go on my laptop and then start researching things and distract from the conversation. But you could do the same thing with ice cores, right?
Yep.
Ice cores. Right?
Yeah, and you'll come to the same conclusion, in fact.
But again, that's also based on how much icefall there was.
No, not really. It's again based on seasonal changes.
Seasonal changes, right?
The thickness of the ice core depends on how much. The thickness of the ice core depends on how much ice fell. The changes in the ice core are seasonal.
I thought it was the type of the actual snow, the actual crystal structure of the snow that fell. I think that's the actual.
That plays a role too, but that plays a role too. But at least in modern ice core sampling, what they often use is they use the gaseous content, which varies seasonally.
But then they're using the gaseous content, not the actual structure of the ice crystal.
Yeah, so the gaseous content is contained; it's trapped within the ice, and so you can measure. So you can measure the seasonal changes of the gaseous content there.
Yeah, so they make an assumption based on the gaseous content, not the actual.
The gaseous content changes seasonally.
Yeah, but we don't know what it was 6,000 years ago.
We can cross-link these facts that the seasonal changes are, consistent with tree ring data, with coral reef data, with sponge data, with ice core data. All these things tie together and correlate together to give us a consistent picture that there is evidence of a very old Earth.
We've only been realistically able to measure, let's say, the temperature of the Earth for the past maybe 100 years. Right?
That's irrelevant to the question.
But temperature is a major factor in how ice forms, right?
Sure,
So
it's
we don't know
irrelevant to
what
the
it was
fact
like
that
there
ice
over-
does form, though, and that there are seasonal changes in gaseous content of the atmosphere.
What specific structure of the ice, right?
Look, so it seems like you're very, very skeptical of the scientific claims, but do you have any scientific claims that actually lead you to the conclusion that the Earth actually is quite young?
Well,
or is your belief based on A, faith, and B, skepticism?
I would say it's now faith before it was skepticism.
Okay, so you don't actually have any evidence for your view, and the only reason why you're skeptical of other stuff is because of faith.
No, I do. For example, I can give you one that both my grandfathers were coal miners, right?
They were coal miners, sure.
And they would find, for example, ice pigs in the coal, bedded in, right?
Sure. This famous
like
example of things that definitely happened to you.
No, but look, you can also find images of people that have found.
Yeah. There's one famous example. In I think it's from Texas, and you're just like assuming that you're just pretending that it happened to you. This is like a really famous example. And I don't believe for a second that it happened to you.
I'm just believing my grandparent. I'm not saying it happened.
It's called the London hammer is the famous example, and it's not it's not an ice pick, it's a hammer. You're talking about something like this, right? Hold on, I'm pulling it up.
Hard to see.
I haven't pulled it up yet, so it would be
I
hard to see.
don't know what it would be because I've never seen it personally. I've just heard my grandfather spoke about this.
So you're talking about this?
They found things. I mean, I've never seen that one personally, but it could be something like that. Yeah.
So this is what your grandparents were talking about.
That could be a scam for all I know.
If this happened at all, this would be what your grandparents are referring to. It never happened to them.
Well, then my grandfather was a liar.
I thought it was both your grandparents now. Both of your grandfathers.
Yeah, they're both miners. One was an electric miner. Like he'd go on there, and obviously the electric's irrelevant. But they both, spoke about things that they found were just like crazy. And it was not like maybe once every time they open up a shaft or something like that, they would find, just funny things like nail. Like why is there a nail there? It could have been Iron Age, right? Who knows, right? Nobody.
And so then why do you believe that this is evidence for a young Earth?
Because I don't see how iron or something that's obviously man-made. Put it that way.
So first we just have to believe your grandparents on face value. Your grandfather's on face value.
Yeah, I mean,
and we have to believe you
think they were liars.
That this actually happened. That your grandfathers actually told you this. You don't think that grandparents ever lie to their grandchildren?
I mean, I'm sure they do.
It happens all the time.
That's what got my curiosity, right? That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's a perfectly good reason to lie to your grandkid, to make them curious.
Yeah, I mean, they could have tried to make me curious.
But even if we grant that all of this is true, at best, this is evidence of Iron Age craftsmen that were involved in mining.
I agree.
So how does that say anything about the age of the Earth? What's the actual evidence here?
I'm saying no one tested it, but why would you find a nail or whatever it is man-made embedded in coal? Like it's split, Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very, very skeptical that ever happened.
Yeah, I look.
And you never saw this happen, right? You just kind of were going off of the word of your grandpappy.
Yeah, exactly. Right? And so is everybody else. Like we're all.
Well, no, because I can present you evidence. I can present you tree ring data actually overlapping, or I can present you with evidence of concentration of uranium or lead in a specific zircon crystal sample. I can present you with that, actual evidence, actual data, actual photographs of all of these things.
So you're talking about zircon crystals embedded in the radiometric dating methods.
I was just talking generally about the evidence that I can present you that the Earth is far older than 6,000 or 7,000 years old.
Okay. But then there are assumptions within that as well. See, we both have the same evidence. But
but the point is your evidence is my grandpappy told me something, and my evidence is the entire scientific community.
Oh, that's what got me curious.
Okay, so then what's the evidence?
Later I researched stalagmite growth, how quickly they can form, how quickly sand.
Sorry, what's the evidence?
I've looked at stalactite and stalagmite formation, in caves.
Yeah, what about them?
And they form really quickly. They can form over a year or two. It doesn't have to be thousands of years.
Okay, but how is that evidence? So sure, how is that evidence that the Earth is young?
Well, the scientific consensus at the time, when these were referenced in, let's say, textbooks, was saying, well, look, that specific stalactite or stalagmite took 10,000 years to form. But they can replicate it really easily, and it takes a couple of years. You get them forming in your kitchen sink if you got a little tiny leak, right? It doesn't take thousands of years; it takes years.
Yeah. So
what they were saying.
So the scientific consensus is that they typically form very slowly, But the growth rates can vary wildly depending on the environmental conditions.
Right.
I don't
what
like
we were taught in textbooks was that this is proof that the Earth is 10,000
wait a
years
minute,
old.
but to be clear,
Right?
how is this claim of yours that yes, stalactites can grow very, very quickly? How is this proof, or how is this even evidence that the Earth is young?
It's one.
At best, what you're doing is you're saying this one piece of evidence that somebody once cited for the age of the Earth being old is not correct.
Yeah,
but that's not evidence for your claim. That's evidence against some other claim.
Yeah, but that's one, right? So
no, those are not the same thing. Evidence against some other claim is not evidence for your claim. So I'm asking what the evidence is for your claim.
That it actually can form really rapidly, and that can show.
How is that evidence? How is that evidence that the Earth is 6,000 years old?
Because if they're forming rapidly, then obviously it takes less time. Therefore, it's less time.
No, it just means that. So if they can form rapidly, it just means that those stalactites are younger. It doesn't mean that the Earth is younger.
Then why are they using them to date things?
No, they don't.
Not me. They're using it.
They don't. No, I've never seen stalactites used to date. Well, okay. I imagine that you. So I've actually never seen this personally. That you can use stalactites to figure out how old the Earth is. What I have seen. Is I remember being told based off of the rate of dripping, you can estimate how long that stalactite has been growing for, and that's based off of the conditions.
Maybe the science has evolved since I went to school, but that was
How long ago did you go to school?
At least 30 years ago now. So when I was taught these specific 41.
Okay, you're not that much older than me. So unless like the UK, which I assume is where you are, unless the UK has a much worse schooling system than the United States, we weren't taught significantly different things.
I wasn't taught in the UK. No, I was taught in American school.
Oh, okay.
In the Middle East.
Well, so look, so then you and I were literally taught in the same schools. The science hasn't changed significantly. So like, I just don't know where you're getting this claim that like, yes, all stalactites must take hundreds of thousands of years to form. Like, the science hasn't changed that much in the last, in the 9 years between you and me.
I know. Look, maybe you went to a better school.
Were you using a textbook from like the 40s?
I don't know what they were using, honestly, but that's what I remember this vividly.
Okay, well, so
we were in class. This is what they taught me.
It's possible that you were taught poorly.
Possible.
That doesn't say anything about what the scientific consensus was or is.
I'm only showing examples of different.
But again, even if it's the case that stalactites can form much more quickly and often do form much more quickly, which is not true, by the way. Like it's rare that it does, but it can happen. That doesn't make the Earth young, right?
No, but what we have to do is provide different sources of evidence.
You need evidence that the Earth is actually young, not just evidence that the Earth is not just a counter argument for some piece of evidence that may have been used for the Earth being old. That's what I'm asking for. I'm actually asking for positive evidence that the Earth is young.
What about petrified trees that are basically in core? What's it called when you got Earth? I'm losing the word. Sorry, but I think you know what I mean.
I have no idea what you mean.
Petrified trees standing up between different layers of Earth.
Well, as far as I know, they're not petrified. But again, that is an attempted counter argument against old Earth stuff. That is not evidence for the age of the Earth being 6,000 to 7,000 years old. That's what I'm asking for. I don't want you to just poke holes in other stuff. I want you to give me evidence for your actual claim.
Perfect evidence for 6 to. All right. Well,
I want to see the evidence for the claim.
At the same time, we have the same evidence. So.
Well, then present it. Present the piece of evidence that leads you to that can only be that can only be reasonably inferred to get you to a young Earth. What's the piece of evidence that does that?
The one single piece of evidence that would be the best sort of evidence that I can think of that only presents with interpretation, obviously, because everything is interpreted. I would probably have to say the rapid death of all the animals really quickly, and then the way they were fossilized. I would say fossilization is probably the best thing.
Which time?
Fossilization.
Because we have several examples in the fossil record of mass deaths occurring.
Yeah, if you look at the actual layers, the way the fossils were placed throughout, stratus, whatever it's called, you would see that they kind of auto-arrange. So you'd have the smaller organisms on the bottom, then you'd have the larger organisms on the top. And I think that's probably the
Wait, that's not true though. We have really, really old organisms from 65 million years ago down pretty far, and then we have much smaller organisms on top of that.
You don't know how old they are.
So assume that it's not 65 million years old. You still have dinosaurs that are down below, and then we have small animals above it.
Generally, you have small animals below and larger animals above.
Except I just gave you a counterexample. So like your general statement is false.
Yeah, but one example doesn't take away.
That's like an enormous example. You have all of these enormous animals that are pretty far low, and then we have nothing that's nearly that big after that.
But is there anything after that anyway?
Yeah, there's plenty of fossils from after that. All sorts, like literally any fossilized mammal.
Yeah, but fossilization requires a very specific set of,
Here.
Right?
Let me show you a fossilized mammal.
The reason we can't find fossil-like humans as often as we do other animals is because, well, where are all these bodies of humans that have, been fossilized, which we never really find?
What are you pivoting to now?
Well, we've never really found a fossilized human, have we? But yet we find fossilized other animals. So where are all these fossilized humans if we've existed for 100 million years?
Yeah, so there are fossilized humans.
Well, how many?
At least one.
Right, but how many of the other creatures are fossilized?
I don't understand the question. Are you like asking for how many like examples we have of each individual species?
Well, we have one fossilized human. Great.
No, I didn't say we had one. I said we have at least one because I don't know the answer.
At least one. Sorry.
Because I don't know the answer offhand, right?
But we would say that we have very little fossilized humans.
I don't even think that that's true.
Well, we'd have to.
Like I'm just finding I'm finding tons of them when I'm Googling. Okay, so apparently the Smithsonian Museum of Natural History has documented fossils from more than 6,000 individuals.
Mm-hmm.
So that's thousands.
And then again, how many animals, like
of a single species?
We're talking about 300 million years. We're talking about 300
Humans haven't been around for 300 million years.
Oh, whatever it is, 250.
300,000 years.
300,000, sorry.
You were off by a factor of or 3 orders of magnitude.
Regardless, how many humans were alive and dead between 300,000 years? Billions, probably.
Well, most of the humans that have ever lived have lived in the last few thousand years, right? The human population was very, very small up until like 10,000 years ago. So, but
what was the population of the other animals?
Look, so there are fossils of animals for which we only have one example.
Yeah.
So like. Okay, sometimes we find more fossils for things, sometimes we find fewer fossils for things. This is just based off the environmental conditions. I'm still waiting for the actual evidence.
That's the one. That's literally the one. You have a lot more fossilized creatures that are not human.
Wait a minute, right? But that's not true. So on a per species basis, that's just not true.
You do. You have it all the time. No. You find them all the time.
Right. So you're comparing. Hold on. To be clear, you're comparing every other animal and just humans. You have to compare species to species. So we have 6,000 fossils of humans, at least in the that's in the Smithsonian Museum alone. I'm sure that there's plenty of others in other places. But let's say that we have at least 6,000 humans. There are other species of animals for which we have exactly one fossil.
I would say that if you pick the specific species that was more like a crustacean, right? That would have been a bottom dweller, because that's a perfect condition to be fossilized. You would find hundreds of thousands of these fossils, right? The reason you don't find human fossils is because they float.
One sec, hold on. One sec. I bet you that there's a species of crustacean that we only have one fossil for.
There could be one specific one, but I'm talking about the ones we find all the time that are the most common. that specific.
So
one
if you're
species,
talking about
fine.
the most common fossils, of course we're going to have more of those because they're the most common.
Yeah, the bottom dwellers. They're the most common.
So okay, so apparently, and this is
we don't know that.
This is Google AI. This is Google AI. So take it with a grain of salt. But numerous crustacean species are known from only a single fossil. Examples include the 430 million year old lobster relative Cascalis ravidus and the oldest known crab, Cretopsara anthenata. So yeah, there are fossils of crustaceans, bottom dwellers, for which we only have one sample fossil.
Okay, but we.
So your guess was just wrong. It's just false.
No,
crustaceans. You're comparing an entire
there
order.
There are many crustaceans.
Yes. Yeah,
many crustacean
you're comparing an entire order of animals with a single species, Homo sapien.
Look, humans are mammals.
Yeah, so
right, crustaceans. You want to
compare the number of crustacean fossils to the number of mammal fossils? That's probably a reasonable comparison. Okay.
That's what I'm trying to say.
How many mammal fossils have been found? Okay, we're going to trust Google AI here. So the American Museum of Natural History alone holds over 400,000 mammal fossils. That's a single museum. Then we have the Field Museum, has nearly 77,000. So we're talking probably millions of fossils across the world.
Maybe,
right?
Who knows? We haven't counted.
I mean, it's at least 500,000 in exactly 2 museums, right?
I mean, we're guessing, right? Like,
well, yeah,
but the world we're guessing, but at least 2. Yeah.
I mean, you're guessing too. So okay, how
we're all
many
guessing.
Crustacean fossils have been found? I actually can't find any data about how many we have. I'm just finding how many different species we have. And there's like 2,000. There's about 3,000 fossil species that we found of crustaceans, I guess.
And how many of them?
I don't know. I can't find that
much
data.
More than mammals,
You're just assuming
obviously.
that. You're just assuming that.
Well,
I'm not finding
you're
any.
just assuming too.
No, I'm not assuming anything. I'm not finding.
You're using Google AI.
I'm actually not finding any data about this. About how many.
Using Google AI.
Well, yeah, because neither of us have the data on this. Yeah. So what do you want me to do? Well, so look, you're just assuming that we have more. You're just assuming that we have more crustacean fossils than we have mammal fossils, which maybe it's true. One of them was going to be more, and I wouldn't be surprised if it was crustaceans, because crustaceans are a lot older of an animal group. So they've existed for a lot longer.
In your view, that's your assumption. In my worldview,
well, yeah, but my view is based on scientific evidence, right?
So is mine.
What's the scientific evidence? Sorry, one more time.
The same one you use.
The uranium lead dating.
Yeah, that's again. You don't know when that started.
So uranium lead dating gets me to a very old Earth. How does it get you to a young Earth?
Because you don't know when that started decaying. You don't know if there was any contamination.
Wait, no, you didn't answer my question. You're just saying yours is wrong, not mine is right because X.
No, because you're starting with an old Earth idea. Therefore, the data.
No, I mean my old Earth idea comes from evidence, though. You're doing the same thing again, where you're just saying, yes, your idea is wrong. Not yes, my idea is right. Also, here's an interesting question that somebody raised in the comments, which is a good point. If there are more crustacean fossils, it seems like that's good reason to think that crustaceans are older. Right? I don't know where he went. All right, we will let him go. Yeah, he was just doing contrarianism. And like the one piece of evidence that he actually did offer isn't evidence, it's just evidence against my thing. His claim was like the upright trees in the stratigraphy. The upright trees in the stratigraphy is often used as like evidence that like the layers of stone and stuff is not indicative of time, because how can you have a tree that's upright if this is forming slowly? But that's not even evidence for his view. That's evidence against my view, and these are not the same thing. All right, let's talk to Bobcat. Bobcat, how's it going?
Yeah, hi, man.
Bobcat,
so
how old do you think the Earth is?
Sorry?
How old do you think the Earth is?
I think it's much older than we're taught in schools. I mean, I don't know.
Oh, okay. Well, then I don't think that we're in disagreement.
Yeah, because in my opinion, it's just because in the time that our books were made, I don't think that people had enough evidence for such claims that it would be possible that it's a lot older than it is.
Okay. Well, thanks for being here, Bobcat. All right, let's talk to Navy Brady. Navy Brady, how's it going? Oh, and he left. Well, y'all, the guest box is currently empty, which means that we have nobody. Oh, we should read some super chats. I've missed those for a while. Maybe somebody will pop in at the end once we're done with super chats. From Uncle Rick Tovan with the $5. How do creationists believe the world is 6,000 years old? My interpretation that Genesis occurred over the span of almost 7,000 years. Oh, because they're very, very picky about when they apply the whole one day is like 1,000 years thing. From Dwayne Warren with the $2. No homophobia here. It was moral realism argument. I mean, you could always appeal it. You could always appeal whatever happened with the mods. From Otto with the $2. Caller's uncle took his nose and never gave it back. No, his grandpa did, right? From Dwayne Warren with the $5. It's settled. The only way to prove the age of the earth is to saw it in half and count the rings. True. That's exactly true. From Dr. Fudge with the $5. Did anyone catch that? He went to school 30 years ago and he's 41. So he stopped going when he was 11. I mean, I just understood that to mean, you know, about 30 years ago. Like about 20 years ago is when I was in school, right? From Dr. Fudge again with the $5. Lucia is an 11,500-year-old fossilized human found in Brazil. She was definitely fossilized. That's interesting. From Very Good Wizard with the $5. Big fan. Thanks for doing this, Dr. Blitz. You're welcome. I'm happy to do it. All right, let's see if we have any more guests. We do.
Yo, hello?
Lucas, how's it going?
It's going good. I don't disagree with you. I was just gonna say I've been watching since like, I don't know, like 2023 or something, and just wanted to say
I appreciate you.
I love the streams, and I can't wait for the April Fool's one to come back.
Ah, yeah. A man of culture, I see.
Yeah, I like that one.
Yeah, they're always fun. All right, take care, Lucas. Glad to have you here.
Yeah.
Let's talk to Jeff Cisco. Jeff, how's it going?
Pretty good. I was in church for a while as a kid, and I think just like by experiencing life, like I just like kind of like found myself like not believing it so much, but listening to you really affirmed that. And
well, I'm glad to be of assistance, but I do gotta let you go because you're not opposition.
But I love you so much. I've listened to you for a long time, and you're my favorite
person doing this. I appreciate that.
Yep.
Take care, Jeff.
Have a good day.
Literally, the stream after this is another Redditor atheist asking for mud debate. Like, okay, Jaden Smith, we see you. Look, I mean, if you think that the Earth is if you think that the Earth is 6,000 years old, or just about there, feel free to join Sony Blank. I think that teaching and communicating about what the actual science is, and, you know, discrediting people who think that the Earth is quite young, I think that's actually like a good thing. If you don't think it's a good thing to promote true information and avoid false information, I don't know what to tell you. No, that stutter was crazy. Yeah, I know. Tell me about it. Look, so I do stutter. I don't have like a diagnosed stutter disorder or something like this. The reason I stutter is because my mouth just doesn't move the way that I want it to sometimes. I don't want to do the thing where, oh, my brain is working faster than my mouth, but that's like roughly why it happens. which is why I talk so quickly. I talk so quickly to begin with, but you know, it can only go so fast. Why only opposition? Because otherwise there's not much to talk about, right? All right. God, do I actually want to end the live here? You're a joke. You stutter because you're lying to us. That's a wild claim. I just have a headache, and I have a headache because I don't know if I'm ending the live, but I have a headache because I haven't had coffee, and I can't have coffee, and I'm mad about it. So, from Simeon Urchin with the $5, much love from the Discord chat, or Discord live chat. So first, drink water, okay. And second, when does a joke become a dad joke? When it becomes apparent. I like that. When it becomes apparent. True. Oh, we have a guest on Discord. FPS Kiwi. FPS Kiwi, how's it going? FPS Kiwi, can you hear me?
Oh, hello.
A little?
What about now? Is this better?
You can turn up my volume and then you should be able to hear me better.
There we go. Sounds good.
All right, Kiwi, how old do you think the Earth is?
Yeah, between 6,000 and 7,000 years old.
Okay. You would say you said between 6,000 and 7,000 years old is what you said?
Yes, yes.
Okay, just checking. So, why do you think so?
Based on, well, first, of course, the Bible that claims it. I do believe the current, if you're going to be English translation, there's some issues which makes it a little bit younger than it should be, but it's only by around 500-600 years. And it was,
But it's not off by like 600 or 700 years, right?
I can't remember if I look. It was a while I looked into it, but there was some Jewish scholars that changed some of the ages of some people to disprove some prophecy of something. And if you check the original Masoretic text, then you'll see that it was changed a little bit, but it's not by a huge amount. It's some
Sure. So you're saying it could be like 6,000 to 7,000 years old. You know, yes, plus or minus 600 to 700 years, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, got it. Just checking. Yeah. So, look, I mean, I get that that's what the Bible conveys, but surely if surely if the Bible conveyed something that was like obviously false, you wouldn't want to believe it, right?
Yes, of course.
Like if Bible, for me, like if the Bible said that like somebody lived to be 900, that's probably not true, right?
I mean, like the Bible does claim that there's certain people live to 900. Like Methuselah lived to 969.
Yeah, I know, and that's crazy. Sorry, I'm getting a phone call really quick.
No worries.
Sorry about that. That was my good friend Ian asking for his money back. Anyway, what were we saying? What were we talking about?
Yeah, we're just going over the small changes that were done with the translations, and then that I believe. Yeah, we were talking. Yeah, that's what it was. The crazy claims.
Methuselah. That's right. So like, look, yeah, the Bible does say Methuselah lived to be like 900 something years old, and that's crazy, right?
It would be if we base our, what you would say, if we look at how the Earth is today and how people live today, you know, DNA, the environment, the amount of oxygen, air pressure, etc., it would be impossible. And that's the same for some of the.
I'm a little confused. Are you saying that like we could live to be 900 if like we change the amount of oxygen in the air?
No, I'm not saying change. There would be a lot of environmental differences that would have to happen, including DNA. Yeah, like DNA would have to be different than it is today.
What was different about the DNA back then?
If you look at the Bible story, we see, you know, as everyone knows, God created two people. You know, there's a lot of people that lived 900, and then this big flood happened. The DNA pool was, you know, completely destroyed. Now it's down to 8 people instead, and only 6.
Well, but it started off with just 2 people, right?
That's right.
So one would think that with the 2 people, it would be even worse than with 8 people.
Well, that's if we look at how our DNA is today, then we would be completely correct. But as we're starting to find out already in the DNA of, you know, everyone's starting to take DNA tests, we're all starting to find out that now there are these 6 pairs, which lines up with the Bible story from Shem, Ham, and Japheth.
There are these what?
We're literally seeing that with the, you know, in the DNA. I'm not going to go super deep into it, but we're able to
go
find,
super deep.
You know how you're able to track, what do you call it? Like parents, you can track back in genealogies.
Yep.
Using DNA. And
yeah.
because we have so many now different DNA tests from around the globe, we're now seeing that every single person has the exact same 6 pairs of chromosomes or DNA. This DNA, whatchamacallit.
Well, that can't be true. We can't be the exact same 6 pairs. Otherwise, you would have people beyond just identical twins that are identical.
What do you mean?
Well, look, so if you have 6 pairs of chromosomes.
No, I'm not talking about chromosomes. We have 6 codes back. We can trace everyone's DNA. We can trace back to 6 pairs.
6 pairs of what?
That's what I'm saying. People. So sorry, not 6 pairs.
Can you source this for me? Because this sounds fascinating.
Yes, this is a lot of people don't know about this.
Yeah, I'd love to hear about it.
I wish I was the right person to talk about this. I am currently researching this.
But so if you're currently researching it, you should have like a source on hand, right?
Yeah, that would have been a good thing to have right now.
But like you're currently doing it, right?
Yeah, I'm actually traveling right now, so I'm only got my phone on me.
So like, what was the most recent article that you read about it?
Yeah, good question. I will see if I have it saved on my phone here, but I don't really want to spend time grabbing this right now.
So, are you perhaps?
I'll come back to this.
Sorry, are you perhaps referring to maternal haplogroups?
Oh, I did not mention that on.
Are you perhaps referring to maternal haplogroups?
I'm not sure what the terminology is for. Is that for the?
But I thought that you've been researching this.
I said I've just started getting into this. This was a bit of a side thing. I just thought this was a good thing to note that we're now
because
seeing...
apparently there's somewhere between 22 and 27 major distinct mitochondrial haplogroups that represent the foundational branches of the human maternal tree, at least according to Genomia. Which, you know, maybe it's not particularly reliable. I don't know. It's just a genetic lab, but that seems like a lot more than the number of daughters that you've had.
Yeah, I really wish I could. I knew the term for this thing in the DNA. I would need to.
And it looks like there are 20 major Y-DNA haplogroups, which is also a lot more than the number of sons that Adam and Eve had, or than the number of people available after the so-called flood, right? So it seems like they don't come back to just like one person. Or
no,
sorry,
come back
6
to
people, 6
women.
pairs.
Specifically the women is what it's traced by, and I cannot.
Yeah, so those are the maternal, those are the mitochondrial haplogroups, and there are apparently somewhere between 22 and 27 of them, depending on who you ask. Not 6.
There's something else that goes further back that goes back to just 3. I know that. I don't. I'll have to come back to that. I don't think this is not.
Are you talking about like Are you talking about like mitochondrial Eve? Because that's one.
I'm not sure.
That's one,
I
not
know
6.
there is a. Yeah, I know that goes back to just 1, but I'm talking about this. That you can see the 3 as well.
I don't know, man.
But yeah, I didn't want to get stuck on this one because that was a bit of a side thing. my main thing was coming back to, I just wanted to mention like DNA. You could make an assumption, and yes, it would be an assumption, but you could, if you consider if the two first pairs are like, you know, perfect DNA, then inbreeding is not going to be an issue. We already know this. If you could have an
yeah, so
incredibly
DNA,
perfect DNA and perfect situations
I thought
I
thought that their DNA was corrupted after they left the garden.
The DNA there's nothing that says the DNA was corrupted.
Oh, so when did the DNA become corrupted?
I wouldn't say that the DNA itself became corrupted, but the whole creation itself.
Is the DNA part of it?
You know, decay was introduced at the fall, is what the theory is.
Yeah, so my understanding is that it's probably not possible for humans to live more than like 100, maybe 130 years or so, if only because of telomere shrinkage. And I could check that for you if you want.
Oh, no, that's fine. But as I said, if DNA was less
telomere length, sorry,
diluted as it is today.
So do you know what telomeres are?
I'm not familiar with that term.
They're basically the end caps of your chromosomes.
All right.
Yeah. So they're the end caps of your chromosomes, and they get shorter and shorter every time a cell reproduces. The telomeres get shorter, and so and once you run out of telomere, then you just start losing DNA, and then you'll very quickly die after that. And so that happens after, theoretically, like 125 years, maybe.
Yeah. Yep.
So like, how do you suggest? And this is not like an imperfection. This is like
yeah, this is like a card code. Like you don't have.
Yeah, this is like built into the human experience, right? So like, my question is like, how did Methuselah live 900 years?
That's right. So to answer your question, like when did DNA get corrupted or changed?
But this isn't about DNA being corrupted. This is just a part of
chromosome or human. What do you want to call it?
When did they stop, or how far do you have to go back before you don't have humans anymore?
Yeah, but my answer to just the question when did that get changed is at the time of the flood, because it actually says in the Bible that.
Wait a minute. So how did Methuselah survive?
Well, he didn't live after the flood.
No, my question is, look, Methuselah had DNA, right?
Yeah.
So if Methuselah had DNA, then his DNA had telomeres. Those telomeres get used up in some sense.
Yes.
As the organism, in this case Methuselah, lives longer and longer. So how did his not get used up even after 900 years?
Because it was changed. God did something at the flood. It says in the Bible.
But this is just biology. Like, I don't understand.
No, but he changed biology. He's God. He can do whatever he wants. Like he flooded.
Okay, so it's just magic?
He destroyed the entire earth. Well, you can call it magic. You can call it God. It doesn't matter what you want to call it. But God's not limited by space time. He's outside of space time. That's why it's stretched out. That's why we have proof of like the Big Bang kind of proves how the Bible says that he stretched out the heavens. We see it still stretching out today. There's just a question of how long it took him to do that, and we can debate on that forever.
It seems like if you want to believe the things in the Bible, you have to like disbelieve biological genetics, right?
Well, no, because he changed it. He said that their lifespan will be around 120 years. It says that in the Bible. After the flood, he changed it so people wouldn't live longer. Why he did that, I don't know. How
Didn't
he did
Noah
that,
live like 600 years?
Yeah, but he had obviously the old chromosomes. Yeah, whatever God did, he changed it so no one else. Yeah, so he did something that everyone else after the flood wasn't living longer. And we see that in proof. Like no one, as you said, it's around 120, 125 years. It's not many people that live longer than that. And he put a limit, an age limit. Why? Well, I don't know. He obviously thought it was a bad idea for people to live longer after, in the fallen world. So something was changed. And of course, what do we have for
it's
proof
like,
for that? We have to take God's word for it.
So if you want to believe something that is like seemingly obviously very just not true, that like somebody could ever possibly live to be 900 plus whatever, you have to just believe that
based on our current genetics.
Yeah, based off of like the way that we understand the world, then like you have to just believe that like God magicked the DNA so that it was fine. It didn't have the end replication problem.
Yeah, well, he's God. Like, you don't think someone that's outside space-time that literally created everything from nothing can't change DNA or make it perfect? Of course he can. He can do whatever.
But if you're
So
if you're just invoking magic, then like, why should we believe that any of this happened?
Well, it's not invoking magic. It's just
you're literally invoking magic.
Well, it's the same magic that's caused everything to come from nothing.
Yeah, that's also believing in magic. It's just that for some reason is more palatable to some people than you know, somebody living to be 900 years old. But it is, you're right, the same kind of invoking magic.
Yeah, like, you know, whether or not believe it was someone that caused all the nothingness to explode, or if it was nothing that it caused everything to explode, it's you know, you're still believing in some sort of magic. So,
well, no,
if you want to call it magic,
I have a feeling that you have a misunderstanding of the Big Bang, but that's neither here nor there. Look, what I'm getting at is merely that there are things that are like, if you came at this from an unbiased perspective, there are things in the Bible that are just like obviously not true, right?
Yeah, like what?
Like somebody living to be 900 plus years old, plants existing before the sun existed.
That's a false assumption, because you're assuming that God can't have made perfect DNA in the beginning and changed it. Because it said in the world, it says in the Bible that
I said if you're coming at this without any preconceived notions, without any preconceived beliefs, then like just existing as a person in the world, you'd be like, yeah, obviously nobody's ever lived like 900 years. Obviously, no plants existed before the sun did.
That's a preconceived belief in itself.
That's just part of human life.
You can't come at the Bible with no preconceived belief. If you came at the Bible truly with no preconceived belief, you'd just be like, oh, that's interesting. Because you're not. If you're coming at it with
no, I mean, so what I mean is what I mean is no biases. What I mean is no biases. What I mean is no biases, right? Just based off of like living as a normal human, right?
Yeah, but having no bias would be just like, oh, that's interesting. They lived that long then. Like that would be no bias. But you coming at it and saying, oh, that's impossible. No, that's,
well, you're coming at it with no belief that it's true, no belief that it's false. You're just coming at it with just like what you know as just like a regular human, and then what you read is does this read as fiction or does it read as truth? And once you come across somebody lived 900 years, you'd be like, oh, that's like not true. And then you'd come across
that would be having a bias.
It's not a bias. It's just based off of the experience that you've had.
Which is bias.
You think bias?
That's how biases are.
So you and I are just using the word different. You and I are just using the word differently.
But
what I'm meaning is you're not coming at it with an agenda, right?
Yeah, but if you're not if I would read that without an agenda, I would just read and be like, oh, okay, that's interesting.
If you're trying to figure out whether it's true, whether it's nonfiction or fiction, not coming at it with an agenda, just trying to figure out whether it's true or not true, then you would read a story about somebody who was 900 plus years old when they died, and you'd be like, obviously that's fiction. It's the same thing as if you came at the Lord of the Rings.
No, you're wrong.
Okay, so
you're wrong.
Would you come to the? Okay, hold on. I'm going to test your intellectual honesty here. Would you do the same thing with the Lord of the Rings? Would you just say, oh yeah, they were just hobbits?
Well, no. You know why?
Why?
Because there's another step. My first reaction is not going to be that's false. Okay, so the first thing will be like, okay, who wrote this? You know, where did this information come from?
Yeah, it was a guy. It was a guy a guy wrote it before you were born, and he died before you were born.
I'd research up who wrote this, and okay, I'll eventually find out. Okay, it was this guy who lived here, and he wrote this story, and they made films about it. You know, so you get to the bottom of it. So when it comes to the scriptures, you'll say, okay, who wrote this? Okay, it's
by the way,
different people.
J.R.R. Tolkien wrote all of the text that you'll find on it. Like he wrote those books, the Lord of the Rings books, as translations. He was just translating a lost manuscript, right? He just found the manuscripts, and they're far, far older than his English versions. Okay. That's what it says.
And
so you actually don't know who wrote it. but they're very old.
But I can go cross-check these. I could cross-check the manuscripts.
What manuscripts?
And
You don't have access to them.
And you can
don't
also
have access
check.
to the original manuscripts.
No, you can get access. All the manuscripts on these things are publicly available, and you can
No, they're not.
cross-examine. You can
J.R.R.
find
Tolkien never made them
other
available.
historic. Are there any other historic documents that mention anything about these things?
Nope. He was he just came across them and he translated them.
Yeah, well, if that's the case, then I will know that is just a made-up story. There's no other basis in history that proves that this stuff is true. When it comes to the scriptures in the Bible,
is there a basis in history that proves that the Bible is true, like the Genesis account? You there? You there? I don't know where he went. All right. What an anticlimactic ending. Let's read some super chats. From Mr. Kiki with the $5. If Blitz learned to talk as fast as his mind is going, he could release a Kent Hovind diss track. I could never rap. I trip over my words too often. See, I did it right there. I trip over my words too often. From I'm the Big Cheese with the $5. In the Falun Gong, the Earth is trillions of years old with ancient hyper-advanced tech civilizations of all Buddhas. Interesting. I don't know what to make of that, but okay. From I'm the Big Cheese again with the $5. Methuselah also had a magic spirit sword and slayed 900,000 demons and died week before the flood. Could he stopped flood by slaying Nephilim? We never know. Oh, good point. Yeah, what if he slayed all of the Nephilim? Then could the flood have stopped? From Blancs with the $2. How is assuming God magicked DNA not bias? Right? It is bias. From Christopher Sanford with the £5. Dude's not advocating reading without an agenda. He's advocating reading without a brain. My view is roughly that, like, if you just took a normal person and presented them this book and they don't know if it's fiction or not, and just asked them to read it and determine if it's fiction or not, they would obviously tell you that it's fiction. Obviously. It's only because we have a huge cultural bias towards this book that people take it seriously. All right. So I'm gonna end the live there. I have to get ready to go soon anyway. And I have a headache and I want to go hydrate more. So thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for supporting me. If you want to join the Discord server, go to discord.gg/drblitz. I will see you guys there. Especially if you're 18 years or older, then you can join the Discord server. And I'll see you tomorrow with a little bit of a late live. The live will probably not start until maybe 10. But there will be a live tomorrow. I hope.